One day, a boy continues to find himself dying again and again, but after so many countless deaths, he's able to find himself waking up in a peculiar place. As he scans the area, he sees nothing but emptiness. He even thought that maybe he was now finally in heaven. However, as he checks his status bar, he is in deep shock as he discovers that he is reincarnated into another world, not as a human but as an archdemon. He is now a demon lord, and as a demon lord he is obligated to guard the dungeon he is assigned to, since if the dungeon dies, the demon lord will die too, and that system works vice versa. To be able to guard his life in the dungeon, he must improve his skills and get stronger. Based on his discovery, as he checks on the status bar, almost all items and food are purchasable with dungeon points. However, the problem is, how will he possibly acquire all those dungeon points? Well, it turns out that he can do so when there are monsters besides the ones summoned by the dungeon master inside the dungeon. The amount of acquired DP depends on the monster strength. Second, when the dungeon master kills intruders inside the dungeons, the amount of acquired DP depends on the intruder's strength. Third, when absorbing monsters' corpses or anything else that can be seen as food inside the dungeon, the amount of acquired DP depends on the objects. And lastly, in self-generation, the amount of acquired DP depends on the dungeon size. But since none of these things are about to happen anytime soon, he decided to just go outside for now. But it seems like his carefree exploration came to a stop when a giant, really strong dragon came out of nowhere. As their eyes met, the nervousness in the man's body, aka Yuki, is very apparent. Yuki tries to tell the dragon to talk the matter out peacefully. However, it seems like the dragon has already decided that no one will escape its wrath once someone breaches its territory. Yuki is in deep shock when he finds out that the dragon can speak. As he checks on its status panel, he wishes that the dragon is a mere low level like he is, but his life comes crashing down as he finds out the dragon is actually supreme and ancient one. His current level of 1 is no match to the dragon's level of 987. Yuki starts to panic as the dragon positions itself to aim. But then, Yuki smelled something that would definitely save his life. He stops the dragon from bursting out its flame and tells it that they should just make a deal. Yuki honestly states that he indeed has no chance of beating the dragon with his current power. However, that doesn't mean that he will accept his fate just like that. For that, he chooses to find another way to tame the dragon, and surprisingly, it's by offering the dragon some chocolate bars. It turns out that the dragon actually loves sweets, and Yuki is able to find out about it after smelling the honey scent from the dragon's mouth from miles away. The dragon tries to hide the fact, but after taking a bite, everything changes. The dragon can't seem to describe the delicious mellow sweetness of the bar, which it describes to be way better than honey. Seeing this, Yuki then states that if the dragon promises not to kill him and leave the cave where he lives alone, the dragon will get the privilege of being able to eat chocolate bars whenever it wants. However, Yuki did make it clear that he couldn't produce that many that could satisfy the dragon's giant body. As a result, the dragon transforms itself into a human form. Yuki is in shock as he sees a cute naked girl standing in front of him. The dragon then explains that in her human form, Yuki is able to produce as many chocolates as can satisfy her. He then took her to the dungeon where they fully talk about the deal. There they officially introduce themselves to one another. The dragon's name is Leficios, in short, Leffy. Out of nowhere, Leffy then states that compared to the other dungeons she was able to crush, Yuki's is the most comfortable. Besides, it's just perfect because she's leaving to change her current place, which is pretty uncomfortable. That means she decided to stay at Yuki's dungeon for good. Yuki tried to tell her that she shouldn't be hasty with her decision and think about it a little more. However, it seems like she is really determined to stay no matter what. As a result, Yuki has no choice but to agree with her request. The next day, as Leffy is sound asleep, Yuki tries to improve his dungeon for the first time. He starts off by assigning areas inside the dungeon. As he sets the cave as the dungeon area, Yuki is able to feel that the atmosphere inside the place has changed as well. He now aims to expand the dungeon more, only to find out that he doesn't have sufficient DP to do it. However, thanks to Leffy, whom the dungeon sees as a trespasser, Yuki is able to increase his DP income continuously. That said, for him to be able to expand the dungeon more, he'll just have to wait patiently till the DP score comes back up. In the meantime, he will now try to summon monsters, but he'll first try with the cheapest ones. Yuki then clicks buy, and just like that, a slime appears right in front of him. And it's not just any slime, but a very cute one. Yuki finds the monster unexpectedly cute and even names it She. However, as he checks on the monster status panel, his pride shatters to pieces as he finds out that the small slime has a higher luck stat than he does. While he's having a mini breakdown, a grr is heard echoing. As he turns his head, Yuki finds a three-headed creature called Cerberus, who's at level 32. As Yuki locks his eyes on the said trespassers, Jiggly She stops him from approaching the monster any closer. She then rushes towards the three-headed monster in hopes of defeating it once and for all. Yuki supports his so-called ally Pokemon by cheering. He shouts at She, stating that it's right, it doesn't matter if its opponent is higher level at all. However, his excitement vanishes as She gets defeated in one blow. Yuki then rushes towards his precious slime and kicks the hell out of the Cerberus. Then a splat of blood comes splashing everywhere. It turns out that Yuki's kick was so powerful, it literally smashed Cerberus' heads. Even Yuki is shocked by his abilities. With just that one kick, he's able to level up his skills from 1 to an instant 12. He's able to get a new skill, which is martial arts. However, it seems like his luck stats didn't grow at all. But well, even if his stats are indeed considered high, he still doesn't think he could hold a candle against that super monster, aka Luffy. After he snaps out his thoughts, he then rushes to check if she is alright. And it seems like she is all good, maybe because of the regeneration skill he has. Yuki then starts to blame himself for letting his pet Shi fight a monster. That's why, starting at that time, it'll just be him that has to fight. And for that very reason, Yuki then asks Luffy to teach him some magic. Yuki continues to ask Luffy to teach him magic. He reasons out that he has a pretty high magic stat, so he thinks he can use some. But it turns out that it wasn't that easy at all. Luffy then decided to accept Yuki's request. But before anything else, of course, Luffy asks for more chocolates. Yuki tries to warn her that if she keeps on asking for more chocolates, she'll end up getting a cavity. Luffy then explains that there's no way an ancient dragon like she could ever get such a bad status. Even Yuki is in deep shock when he learns that cavities are a bad status in the said world. Instead of giving Luffy some chocolates, Yuki ended up giving her a pack of cookies. Although at first, Luffy is a bit hesitant to take a bite at the dark clay looking thing. But once she tastes it, she immediately falls in love with the cookie's sweet and crunchy crumbles. Due to her excitement and happiness, Luffy can't even hide the fact that she's glad she moved into Yuki's dungeon. Now that Luffy's belly is already satisfied, the magic lessons begin. At the start of the lesson, Luffy declares that she will make Yuki the most powerful mage in the world. With that said, she then asks for Yuki's hand to make him feel like a real member of this world. The powerful energy that is rushing through Yuki's body and the surroundings is so apparent that even Yuki himself can say that it is far different from the mana that he feels in the air of the dungeon. Luffy felt more like a muddy stream, so heavy and powerful. Thankfully, Yuki's head didn't burst from the powerful mana, since it turns out that not all humans are able to withstand Luffy's powerful magic. That said, Luffy then asks Yuki to do the same as she did earlier on his own. He keeps his focus as much as possible and only looks at one goal. Yuki follows all of Luffy's instructions. Luffy asks him to try to imagine what she is going to say in as much detail as he can, and after that, repeat all the words that she is going to chant. Yuki then does all that Luffy told him to do. He imagines a faraway land and a plain that stretches it over. He also imagines a single flower on that plain. Now, Luffy wants him to imagine that he plucks that flower and puts it inside his hands. Then, as Yuki opens his palm and chants a spell, he's in so much amazement when he sees a beautiful flower in his hands. However, his amazement suddenly becomes gloomy when he realizes that he didn't ask Luffy to teach him magic just to create a flower. Technically, Yuki wants something more. With that said, Luffy then tells him to imagine another thing. This time, a flame. Then after some concentration, Yuki is able to create a fire on his fingertips. Even Luffy is amazed at Yuki's abilities, stating that perhaps being a high demon played a big part in it. On the other hand, Yuki seems so excited about his new skills that it ends up getting out of control. Thankfully, Luffy is right there. If not, his whole place would crumble to ashes. Luffy guides him by saying that if he wants to stop the magic, he should first stop the circulation inside his body. Yuki then reverses the flow back, and just like that, he's able to stop the fire from spreading. Luffy is then left in amazement. She also reminded Yuki that he should pay attention to adjusting his power, since being good at magic means that he needs to be very efficient with his mana when he uses magic arts. That said, for now, Luffy decided to stop the first lesson of teaching Yuki the basics. But before they conclude the day, she makes sure that Yuki won't forget that the most important thing is the image inside his head. Chanting is only there to help him imagine things. Yuki then got curious if he could create something else other than flowers and fire with his mana. Luffy then answers that it really depends on his potential, since basically, magic is divided into earth, fire, water, and wind. But there are also others like time, light, and darkness. In Yuki's case, he at least has an affinity with earth and fire magic, but he still doesn't know about the rest if he doesn't try. Luffy also ensures him that he shouldn't worry about trying things out, since she will be right at his side to watch over him. Yuki then tries to use his magic to use it for his daily needs, like water for a bath and wind for drying. However, the rest he is still not sure if he has an affinity for them or not. But since for now he can only manipulate much of his water skills, he'll just take a bath for the time being. Seeing him taking a bath made Luffy curious. That's why she ended up taking a bath as well. Meanwhile, outside the dungeon, a group of men are seen chasing a little girl into the haunted forest. But it seems like they are so scared of Luffy that they end up letting the little girl run for her life. Now it will only be a matter of time before we know where the little girl ends up. Going back to the dungeon after taking a bath, Yuki leaves the house to Luffy while he roams around the forest. As he steps outside, Yuki will now start with his agenda to rake in DP. Since there is no one who has visited the dungeon all this time, and the fact that the area around the dungeon is Luffy's turf, Yuki doesn't see a lot of animals and monsters. That's why it would be such a problem if he couldn't find a new way to collect DP on his own. That said, he's planning to fill the map and expand his dungeon outwards. While on his work, Yuki is able to start seeing strong monsters here and there. Now that his dungeon expansion was a success, Yuki decided to go back home and cook some food. However, as he gets home and opens the freezer, he's in deep shock when the 1 week worth of meat is all gone, and there's no one who can possibly finish it other than Leffy. Leffy tries to reason out, but it seems like Yuki is not satisfied with her excuses. They ended up getting into a heated argument. Still, in the end, when Yuki tells her that he will never create any snacks again, Leffy immediately bows her head and says sorry, and promises that she will never do such foolish acts again. Since they technically don't have any food, Grumpy and Yuki decided they should just fast for the day. Then, as compensation, Leffy rushes outside and tells Yuki that she'll do something about it. After 30 minutes, Yuki is in deep shock when he sees a lump of monsters in front of him, with blood spilling everywhere. Instead of being thankful and happy, Yuki ended up getting more stressed. But then he remembers that corpses can also be converted to DP, which will be something useful considering Yuki is still expanding his dungeon. The next day, Yuki went on another working day, killing as many monsters as he could. Considering he wasn't able to use fire magic since day 1 of training, Yuki decided to just focus on training his water and earth magic in the meantime. Now that he had finished mapping every corner of the area and the DP revenue rate now is 3 times greater compared to when it was just Leffy, Yuki thought that it was now all good enough. Then he sees something lying around the corner. He thought it was a monster's corpse, but it ended up being the little girl's body. Yuki rushes towards her and immediately performs some first aid by pouring some high-grade potion on her wounds. Seeing that the girl is alright, Yuki thinks he can't possibly just leave her alone in the wild. That said, Yuki ended up bringing the little girl back to the house. It seems like the girl is a vampire based on Leffy and Yuki's observations, and she's not just any ordinary vampire, but a rare one in that sense. In the last several years, pretty-looking species like vampires and succubus are on the verge of extinction, thanks to humans overhunting them and making them slaves. Other than vampires, there are also species like the Children of the Forest, which should have been in a non-aggression alliance with the humans and has also been mercilessly attacked since the humans got into a hostile relationship with demon folk. During this conversation, the little girl then wakes up only to find herself in such an unknown place. Yuki then tries to calm her down by assuring her that she doesn't have to be so frightened since he won't do anything bad to her. The little girl seems to have no plans of trusting Yuki at all, but after she appears and plays with her, somehow she starts to let her guard down a little bit. At this time, Yuki then finds the time to introduce himself and Leffy. Then the girl, whose name is Iruna, also introduced herself with a smile. Yuki then asks her what she was doing so deep in the forest. Iruna then explains that she was being chased by humans, as seen earlier. Yuki starts to feel sad for Iruna. He then went on to ask her if she knew where her home was. Hearing the word home makes Iruna burst into crying. She stated that her home was already gone. All of her family members are now dead, and she doesn't have any place to call home. Yuki tries to comfort her, but it seems like she's gone through so much, considering the area where they are right now is far from human villages, even more so for a child's leg. That means Iruna must have gone through a pretty cruel experience for her to run away. Yuki then assures her that there are no scary humans anywhere and that she can stay as long as she wishes. Iruna then states that she should be dead as well, like her mother and father, considering humans have said to her that she doesn't deserve to live at all. Hearing such a statement made Yuki furious. That said, Yuki tries to tell Iruna that no matter what people say, she deserves to live well and free. In the midst of their conversation, Iruna's belly rumbles in hunger. That's why Yuki offers to cook her some food. However, it seems like what she wants is Yuki's blood. Without any hesitation, Yuki immediately tells her that she can have as much as she wants. On the other hand, Leffy asks him if he is sure about this decision, and it seems like he is, considering he thought that there's nothing wrong about it as he would turn into a vampire or what. It seems like Leffy is worried that he will get hard when a little girl like Iruna comes biting his neck, and it turns out he does. With that said, he ended up getting so weak at the end of the drinking session. Yuki then asks Leffy to take Iruna to the bath, and in exchange, he'll give her 2 bags of cookies. With that said, another new resident has come to Yuki's humble dungeon. For sure, the house will get more and more bustling from now on. With Iruna's arrival, it seems like Yuki's life in the dungeon has become easier than it was before, maybe because of her cuteness overload. While Yuki is at his luck game, choosing an item from his menu panel, he keeps on getting trashy items one after another. Iruna, on the other hand, grew curious at what Yuki was doing. It seemed like she could see the menu panel right in front of Yuki, not like Leffy, who didn't. As he pushes one of the buttons, a white wolf-like creature is summoned. Leffy then tells them that the high-level creature is just an infant, and in the coming days or years, it will become stronger. Meanwhile, Yuki seems to be really curious as to why Leffy can't see his status and menu panel while Iruna can. Leffy then explains that it's because of what they call a marriage ritual. It seems like Yuki sees Iruna as family while he sees Leffy as an intruder. That's why Iruna has some more privilege over Yuki's abilities. It turns out that blood is one of the most important factors that make our bodies work. So to a vampire, rather than a meal, the act of letting another person's blood inside themselves is closer to sexual intercourse. That's why Iruna is technically now Yuki's family after the said blood meal. Since the act of sucking another person's blood is equal to a marriage ritual to vampires, this revelation made Yuki shocked. I mean, it's already quite apparent just by the look on his face. He comes running out of the house, declaring to Luffy that she won't have snacks for 3 days as a result of not informing him from the start. This made Luffy upset, considering it was so unfair and too unjust. But Yuki doesn't give a damn about anything she says, considering he is in a much bigger problem. As he got outside, Yuki then decided that for the time being, he would just pretend that no such thing had happened and let it go like thin air. Instead of stressing himself out, he will now just focus on his main dish for the day, which is the pistol he is able to get from the last episode. Boom bang, boom bang! The pistol sounds echo through the forest. It seems like the revolver evens out all of his loss in the gacha. Furthermore, he is able to store several bullets with varied amounts of mana inside it. He even checks with his mana eyes, and it seems like he didn't see any leak. This means that it would be hard for his opponents to sense it, which makes the revolver a convenient tool. After his mini training with the new weapon, the creature that Iduna is able to summon comes outside. There, Yuki asks it to show some of the skills he has, and he doesn't want to see just any skills, he wants unique ones. Literally, the creature, which they named Rear, has some good and useful skills. In a split second, Rear is nowhere to be found thanks to its Godspeed. Other than that, Rear also has an ever-changing chain skill which summons chains and controls them freely. He also has body transformation, which allows him to change body size from time to time. All these unique skills made Yuki so excited and amazed at the same time. As a result, they ended up being best friends. He even tells Rear that they can stay if he wants to. From now on, the dungeon is Rear's home too. Yuki also wants to start trying out new skills. This time, he wants to learn how to fly. And guess what? He literally sucks at it. He's so devastated at the fact that he even spent a ton of money buying a flight skill, but he still ended up as a failure. That's why, to make things worth it, Yuki ultimately asked for Luffy's help. At first, Luffy is so hesitant, but when Yuki gives her a box of donuts, she immediately gives in. As they go outside, Luffy complained about how the sun was so bright. Yuki then explains that considering how many days she has stayed inside the house, obviously the sun would be really bright. Yuki then asks her if she still has plans of protecting her territory, but it seems like she doesn't anymore. When Yuki shows off his wings, Luffy's eyes shine in amazement. Luffy starts complimenting Yuki's magnificent wings. But when Yuki told her her wings are more beautiful, she ended up getting flustered. After the brief compliments, they immediately proceed to the task at hand. Luffy reminds Yuki that he should make use of his mana eyes and pay attention. Luffy then shows off her imitation wings, which is the one she will use to teach Yuki some flight tips. And just like that, Luffy flies off to show Yuki how good she is in her skills. Luffy then tells him that for him to fly, he should start focusing on gathering all of his mana in his wings. After a few seconds for the first time, Yuki finally got his wings to beat. As long as he maintains it, he'll be able to fly as much as he wants. As he spreads his wings and flopped it again and again, finally, Yuki is now able to see the horizon from above. He's so amazed by the beautiful view of the sky as well as Luffy's beautiful face. For a split second, Yuki froze, but he went back to reality when Luffy snapped him out of it. The two then started to fly here and there, trying to catch up with each other. Meanwhile, at Alfiro, a border town, a guild is located. Inside the guild office, a number of hunters are given an urgent quest issued directly from the guild's higher-ups. Guilds also have rankings inside their organization, with Orichalcum Adamantite being the highest, followed by Mithril, Gold, Silver, Iron, and Bronze. Since the Adamantite class is super busy, the guild has decided to assign the task to the Mithril adventurers. The adventurers then have a meeting with themselves after hearing their urgent news. They start talking about if they will accept the quest or not. They start asking what each other thinks, but in the end, they still don't have any choice but to accept it anyways. Since it is quite known that adventurers who refuse a direct quest from the guild usually see their reputation suffer for it, they have also started talking about rumors that the sightings of that monster that rarely shows itself kept popping up more frequently. Now it's their job to investigate why the monsters in the haunted forest are acting strangely. The next day, the quest began. The adventurers keep running as monsters start popping up one after another. As they make a run for it, a horned tiger shows up. Horned tigers are known to be monsters that can only be encountered by adventurers in the deeper part of the forest, but the fact that the monster is seen at the entrance makes them question what the heck is really happening to the forest. But before they even meet their death, Rear shows up and starts killing the said monster. The adventurers thought that Rear would come after them next, but they were in deep shock when Rear just walked away as if nothing had happened. Now that they are saved, they immediately run for their lives, planning to leave the forest as soon as possible. While they are at it, one of the adventurers noticed that Rear has a collar around his neck, which means there could be someone who tamed such a disaster-level monster. The next day, Rear and Yuki are seen having fun again. Today, their agenda is to go hunting. They move farther away from the forest where many monsters are seen. Once they lock their eyes on one of the horned tigers, Yuki and Rear immediately work together to kill it off. Now that Yuki has wings, hunting has never been easier. On the other hand, Yuki has also noticed that most of his weapons keep on breaking again and again. That's why he decided to make a stronger weapon the moment he gets back home. But for now, he'll just use some metal bar for the hunt. When they jump right into it again, Yuki is seen panicking as a horde of monsters comes chasing them. Aside from the fact that the enemies are greater in number, they all also move fast. Without any choice, Yuki ended up using his magic powers to counterattack the monsters. but the ants then start spraying him with an acid attack. That said, Yuki can't possibly stay like this or else his MP will get fatally low. He must think of another way as soon as possible. He then remembers that he has an item box. Item boxes are used to preserve items by freezing time and the space inside it. Yuki then gets anything from inside the box and gives it to the ants. The monsters then start eating off the preserved meat Yuki has thrown at them. With the ants being so busy, Yuki must think of another plan. But then, it strangely becomes silent. Yuki wonders if they are not coming. Could it be that they really stopped to eat the meat? With that said, just as planned, they just decided to move on. When they got home, Yuki immediately checked on the weapons he could buy. While he's at it, Iduna has grown curious if Yuki will do another magic trick. Yuki then explains that he is aiming to be a creative demon lord. If he doesn't have a weapon, then he'll just have to make one himself. But it seems like Luffy doesn't believe in Yuki's skills. Yuki, on the other hand, immediately shuts her off. That said, the key factors for weapon creation are the material's quality, vivid imagination, and the user's mana capacity, which Yuki thought he all possessed. And now that he already has magic enhancement skills that allow him to add magic circuits to the target, thus making it a magic tool, Yuki now strongly believes that it is the perfect harmony of magic and weapon, which is why this is truly the demon lord he is aiming to be. For starters, he first practiced by turning a lump of iron that he bought from the catalog into a knife. Yuki then poured out some mana and activated a skill. Then after a few seconds, he and Iduna are amazed when a dagger appears. Yuki immediately tries the dagger's sharpness, which is the chef's kiss. Even Luffy is amazed at Yuki's creation, knowing that making such weapons are only the art of the blacksmith magic propagated by the mountain dwellers. But the fact that Yuki is able to do it on his own is just unbelievable. That said, for the next weapon, he's going to give the knife he just made a double edge and make it bigger. Since he has a good affinity with water magic perhaps, Yuki thought that he should make it more of a streamlined or teardrop-like shape in mind. And just like that, he's able to make another weapon, this time a cute one. But it seems like Yuki is not happy about it. That's why he ended up trying to make another weapon using the material he got during hunting. As he concentrates, trying to make the edge of the sword sharp and double-edged, Luffy on the other side bugs him again and again. And as a result, he loses concentration and ends up making a giant flower instead of a sword. Yuki is so frustrated that he ends up teasing Luffy so much that they start bickering again. Iduna, on the other hand, just let the two be and decided to start playing. In the next few days, Iduna is seen having a meal with Yuki's blood. Sucking blood is scheduled to be around once a week. Normally, she just eats food like a normal human. On that same day, Iduna informs Yuki that she will just play outside. Yuki then allows her, but he also reminded that she should go home before dark. However, on that day, Iduna was never seen coming back. Just what in the world happened to the sweet little girl? After Iduna has gone missing, what will Yuki and the others do about it? With that said, Rir has also roamed the area, trying to look for Iduna himself. But it seems like the only thing he found out is the smell of humans lingering in the forest and some traces of a carriage. Then, it seems like if she was abducted, she was not taken away by some random monsters. It seems like she was taken as goods by some slave merchant. As far as features for your bus, after all, Yuki thinks there's no mistaking it. Yuki then asks Luffy where's the nearest human habitation for the dungeon. Luffy then answers that it would only take about 3 hours of flying before they got there. That said, they immediately went on their way while Rir took the lead. As they reached the outside of the village, Yuki froze as he saw a flock of dragons flying in the sky. Luffy then explains that it is her underlings. She'll use it to overwhelm whoever the hell took Luffy from them. That said, they immediately went on their way to take back their little sister. Meanwhile, Iduna wakes up finding herself inside a cage and looking around, sees that she's not the only one. As she looks at the men's faces, she is shocked when she remembers that these men are the same people that killed her father and mother. The men poured their anger at her, saying that they had a hard time looking for her. They also tell her that she will eventually wish she had already died, as she will now be treated as a plaything for the perverted nobles. No matter how painful, Iduna tries to keep herself composed, saying it is okay since she has Yuki and Luffy. Although at first she was a little scared of Yuki, but in the end when she found out that he is kind, she started liking being by his side. On the other hand, Luffy might always be lazing off, but Iduna honestly thinks that she is reliable when the time comes. That's why she strongly believes that they will save her. Until they come, she'll try her best to do what she can do. Iduna then prays for the Earth Spirit to lend her some powers. And just like that, the Earth Spirit helped her unlock her collar and the door of the cage. She also asks the Dark Spirit to make her invisible while she escapes. Before she steps out of the door, she looks at everyone else and says to herself that she will definitely come back and save them all. Meanwhile, as Yuki and Luffy together with the flock of dragons approach the human habitat, soldiers and nobles start to panic. One of the soldiers wakes the Lord up and informs him that there are monsters closing in from above the haunted forest. The Lord immediately asks if they are wyverns. The soldiers then answer that they are not. Based on the surveillance crystals, it is seen that they are a flock of 100 dragons, he said. This made the Lord shocked. He then orders to wake up every soldier and adventurer there is, and to also inform the citizens of the emergency and start the evacuation. Their main priority now is the safety of the people, but the Lord is left wondering why there would be 100 adult dragons attacking them. As they already reach the city, Yuki tells Luffy to keep the dragons in order while he looks for Iduna. Yuki thought he couldn't just go rampaging the city since it might kill Iduna in the process. As a result, Rear and he start to look for Iruna inside the city on their own. Meanwhile, inside the building, monster slaves are getting evacuated as well, but instead of evacuating them with care, they even got harassed in the process. Hearing the cries of the slaves, Yuki knew he had arrived at the right room as he smashed the wall down. Every man starts to wondering what the hell is happening. As Yuki steps in, his eyes roam around the area, only to find that Iruna is nowhere to be seen. As the guys start to get on his nerves, it seems like Yuki slowly realizes that he has stopped being a human after being reincarnated. He doesn't even feel for even a moment that scum like them have the right to live. With this in mind, Yuki is furious. As the bad guys start rushing towards him, aiming their swords up high, Yuki effortlessly kills them in a flick. This shocked everyone, but instead of running for their lives, the other bad guys still opted to fight with Yuki. In the end, they all ended up getting killed. Rear has also jumped in to join the fight. One of the bad guys then tells his members that Yuki has a familiar, and that's why they brought some crystals to make Rear weak. A disturbance crystal has the effect of disturbing the magic flow inside a monster to slow down its movements. The effect varies depending on the monster's power. Now, Yuki finally knows why these so-called adventurers wanted to go deeper into the forest. But as Yuki checks on their stats, it seems like it'll be hard for them to defeat him considering they are all weak. The men then couldn't possibly let Yuki step on their pride, and as a result, all ended up getting killed after Yuki used his water magic to slash all of them. Inside Yuki's head, even mosquitoes are stronger than these men. That said, Yuki then asks Rear if he can smell Iruna's scent once more. But it seems like his nose won't work properly because of all the blood. That's why Yuki thought that they should just ask the slaves then. But on second thought, that'll definitely take too much time. That's why they'll just ask the Lord of the Mansion directly. And let's just say the Lord will not have it easy. The Lord keeps begging and saying that he really doesn't know where Iruna went. He explains that the moment they realized it was when she had already vanished from the cage. Even though they locked her with advanced magical shackles and placed a guard to guard that room, the guard even ended up dying. Hearing this made Yuki smirk in amazement as he realized that Iruna was indeed a very clever kid. After all, the first time he met her was the time she was chased by these same guys. After a little while, some reinforcements come in. The Lord of the Mansion is so happy as he orders his men to kill Yuki once and for all. But in the end, they all ended up getting killed in a flash. Meanwhile, Iruna is seen getting scared and starts looking for her parents' presence. As the memories of her past start coming back, Iruna starts to cry once more. But after she remembers what her mother said, for her to stay alive, a glimpse of hope can be seen back in her eyes. Back to Yuki as he steps outside the mansion, a group of men await him. With a wide smirk on his face, he is amazed at the grand welcome. Iruna, who's at the side of the mansion, hiding, hugs herself out of fear. But all that she could think about was that she wanted to hug Shi again, play games with Luffy, and have naps with Rear. She also badly wants to talk with Yuki once more. All she wants is not to be alone again anymore. As the tears start to flow, when Yuki screams in anger, Iruna knows where to run now. She then rushes off the little alleyway to Yuki's arms. When she finally reaches him, Yuki tightly hugs her, assuring her that she will now be alright. But before they celebrate, Yuki tells her that this place is dangerous and that she should get out of the town with Rear first. Iruna then finds the time to tell Yuki that there are others who have been abducted just like she was, and she wants Yuki to save them all as well. With an assuring look on his face, Yuki tells Iruna that she should leave it up to him. That said, Rear then rushes out of town while Yuki is now in deep rage as he declares he will kill every human who has wronged Iruna no matter what. In the first scene of this episode, Yuki shouts that he will kill every human he sees roaming around. Now that the Demon Lord is already burning in anger, he doesn't care about it anymore and will make sure that the race should go extinct. As he took one step forward, everyone around him froze still. But before he can even land a hit at any of the humans, Luffy steps into the scene. She reminds Yuki to stay calm as they've already fulfilled their objective, considering that Yuki has already taken his revenge against the one that did wrong things to Iruna. So Luffy asks Yuki to go home with her since they have nothing to do in the city anymore. Aside from that, Luffy is extremely hungry, so she starts to demand a feast from Yuki for all her hard work. Although speechless for a little while, Yuki then abruptly smiles. He then promises Luffy that he will give her something special when they return. This made Luffy so excited about the treatment she was about to get. Luffy warns Yuki that what he gives should be special or she won't forgive him. Yuki then states that once Luffy eats the food he will give later, she won't be satisfied by eating normal snacks for a while now. Hearing this made Luffy gulp in excitement. She guesses she has to be careful with it after all. The brief conversation is interrupted when Lelo Lalubia, the town's lord, enters. Lelo says his apologies for causing trouble to Yuki and his family. And on behalf of the people, Lelo bows his head to show respect to the Demon King. He then invites Yuki and Luffy to his mansion to talk about something. He promised that it wouldn't take that long at all. Once they got inside the mansion, Lelo again apologized for what happened that day. He promises to improve his supervision so something like this doesn't happen again. Then Luffy realizes that Lelo may not have realized her identity since she is in a treaty with the humans. Yuki then realizes that Lelo might have an appraisal skill and probably realized that Luffy is the Supreme Dragon. On the other hand, after Yuki learned about the treaty, he got curious about it. Luffy then explains that a long time ago, in an era where everyone wanted to prove their strength, many brainless people came to challenge her. Since things like this happened to her every day, it came to the point that she eventually thought of destroying the whole kingdom altogether. But then the king came and brought her a proposal to not disturb each other. That means that the treaty should still be active till now. So Luffy scolds the Lord, saying that Iduna, the girl they have kidnapped, is her own family. They have done the worst things to her, so they must have prepared for the worst coming to them as well, and pay for what they have done. Laylo then begs for Luffy's forgiveness and states they are willing to keep the treaty. He promises to do his best to accept all the conditions. Luffy then gives the floor to Yuki, stating that he should decide for the team. Yuki then states that he doesn't care what the people are doing, but if something bad like this happens again, he will not think twice about killing them. Laylo then promises to make sure no one enters the haunted forest anymore. Other than that, Yuki also asks the Lord to bring him every slave in the mansion since he will bring them with him as well. Once Luffy and Yuki leave, the Lord sighs in relief as he wishes that they'll never meet the two ever again. But it seems like Yuki and Luffy's request that people not enter the haunted forest would be a little impossible, considering that lately, at the kingdom, there is a faction that is saying everyone should go to the haunted forest since it is rich in natural resources. And knowing that the kingdom might use the event as an excuse to send an army to the forest frightens Laylo. That's why he aims to stop them from initiating havoc at any cost. On the other hand, Yuki is now in a dilemma about what he would do with the female slaves they were able to rescue. When asked if they have a home, it seems like most of them have somewhere to go. Luffy then asks her dragons to take the slaves back to their homes, while those others who have nowhere to go can stay with them. Two slaves are left remaining, named Layla andElyunin. Layla is of Sheephorn race, and Elyu Grail is of Warwolf race. Two of them are willing to serve the Demon Lord and return their favor. When Elyu sees Rear, she's in deep astonishment as Rear is like a god for the Warwolves. As a result, she begs Yuki to let her stay even if she has to do the chores. Elyu wants to serve Rear so that she can boast about it when she comes back to her village. With that said, they all introduce themselves one by one. When they were about to enter, Yuki said his thanks to Luffy for helping him through the whole rescue. Luffy then says her thoughts about Yuki coloring her life. Since the day she met him, her monochrome life turned into something colorful each and every single day, so she hopes that he'll continue to do so in the coming days. When Iduna meets the two, she is thankful that Yuki has saved them, but at the same time, sad at the fact that Yuki has now got new concubines, as she would call them. Such a statement made Yuki caught off guard, and he knew all too well who said such things to Iduna, and it was none other than Luffy herself. Layla and Elyu then enter the room, wearing their cute maid dresses. When Yuki realizes that Layla is of demonkin descent, he decides to ask her what is a demon lord's position from the perspective of a demonkin. Layla then honestly states that they are just a being that is modified by the dungeon to fit it. For example, if there's a dungeon that wants to have a goblin as the demon lord, the goblin will be given power strong enough not to be categorized as a normal goblin anymore. That said, Yuki has now gained new knowledge about his role in the new world. While the girls are inside busy trying things out on their own, Yuki goes out to perform another mission, and that is adding a flatland area to the dungeon. Using his demon wings, he surveys the area from above. As he looks around the field, he realizes that it is quite spacious with a 1 kilometer height and 5 kilometers width. With this much space, Yuki decides to add rivers and mountains, as well as a bridge and sakura trees. To top it all off, he even decided to add a Japanese-style inn where he could relax all day long. While he's enjoying a hot bath, Iduna enters the room asking Yuki to wash his hair. Yuki then tells Iduna about his plans to have a picnic with everyone in the flatland, but it seems like Iduna has no idea what a picnic is. Yuki then finds the time to explain everything to her. Then after a while, Yuki gasps in shock when Luffy enters the inn all naked. It seems like she also wants Yuki to wash her hair as well. During their washing session, it seemed like Yuki couldn't control his breathing as Luffy's naked body touched him. When Luffy takes notice of it, Yuki immediately shuts her off, saying such a childish body does not arouse him. Iduna then stops the two from bickering and they all go inside the hot bath. There, Yuki asks Luffy if she knows the requirements for getting a title. Usually one receives a title after doing something great. Other than that, one might receive a title if they have some thought of defying the law of nature. However, there are also some stupid people out there who think that God bestows us with them after observing what we have done. Either way, no one really knows how to receive one. It is just something that's there before anyone realizes it. This is when Yuki realizes that there is no God in the new world he's in, but there is one that is called a judge, which is the person who hates sin and crime and will bring judgment to guilty people. As Yuki checks on his status panel, he notices that he is able to get a weird title recently, and it seems like it's really useful. This made him wonder if Luffy, the known Supreme Dragon, also had other titles as well. With a cocky look on her face, Luffy said yes, but she just keeps it to herself since the title of the Supreme Dragon, as it is already enough. Yuki is also able to notice that he can't somehow see any of Luffy or Iduna's skills, which means they have the same skill of concealing their powers. During this time as well, Yuki is able to realize that he is technically an immortal when Luffy tells him that as a demonkin, he has a very long lifespan. Although at first, Yuki is a bit terrified of the idea that he will be alone after everyone dies, he's relieved when Luffy tells him that she, as a dragonkin, also has a very long lifespan. While they are so immersed in their conversation, Iduna is slowly dozing off. As Yuki tries to take care of her, it seems like Luffy has finally found out what title Yuki is able to get. And let's just say it literally shattered her pride. Yuki just got the title of Supreme Dragon Master, and this annoyed the hell out of Luffy. When night falls, Layla andElyuin are seen getting ready for bed. It is then revealed that Layla is actually from a tribe of researchers, and she didn't just decide to pay back Yuki for his kindness, but she also plans to do some research about dungeons and demon lords. Other than that,Elyuin is no ordinary wolf race as well. It turns out that she is actually the daughter of the wolf chief. The two didn't want anyone to know their identity, especially Yuki. That's why they made a deal to keep their mouths shut and just keep everything a secret. With that said, since they will have yet another long day the next, they bid each other a good night's sleep. The next day, just as Yuki planned, they all went to have a picnic. Although Luffy didn't want to come, she still ended up getting dragged to the place. Yuki stated to everyone that they would have a good time and play all day. They were all confused since there was no place in the said area that could be utilized for recreational activity. But Yuki assures them that they will surely enjoy it since he has already planned everything. For their first activity, Yuki arranged a sled ride which Yuruna rode first. The maids then followed and they all loved it so much. But it seems like Luffy has no plans of joining the fun, so Yuki decided to drag her into it. She ended up getting dizzy as they slid the sled up the hill. In the end, Luffy then did her payback as she dragged Yuki up above the sky. But it seems like it didn't really affect Yuki as much as she thought it would. Though Yuki did get scared for a bit, he was still able to stay composed. After a long day of play, they decided to eat some lunch with the bentos that Layla andElyuin had prepared. However, Luffy wouldn't be satisfied eating just it, so Yuki tells her that she has no need to worry since he'll make sure to give her some dessert after the meal. At the same time,Elyuin for the first time has finally noticed that Luffy is the supreme dragon. All this time, she thought Luffy was just a mere someone that Yuki was able to save. As they enjoy their day outside the forest at the Alicia Kingdom, the king and the prince are having an argument. It seems like Prince Ryuto Gloria wants to take revenge on Yuki and attack the haunted forest. He didn't want the dignity of the kingdom to fall just because of some demon lord. The king tries to stop him, saying that the problem might get even bigger if they did so. No matter how the king tries to stop the prince, it seems like he really decided to kill Yuki no matter what. As a result, the prince ended up ordering a number of soldiers to attack the said haunted forest. As they launched their attacks, Yuki together with Luffy noticed the incoming intruders. As Yuki checks on them, it seems like their equipment is mediocre, but they look like some country soldiers and are about 400 to 500 in number. Knowing this made Luffy irritated at the fact that these humans didn't learn from their mistakes. She then asks Yuki if she should go and finish them all up. However, Yuki stops her and states that he wants to try something, but if it doesn't go well, she can jump right in to help him. Before the fight, Yuki states to at least try to warn them first. That said, he then goes off while Luffy is left at the house awaiting his return. As Yuki arrives at the said place, he quickly notices that the intruders are also using the same artifacts that weaken monsters like last time, but it doesn't really matter considering it doesn't affect him at all. Without any second thought, Yuki enters one of the tents. As one of the soldiers see him, the soldier quickly froze and stayed still. Yuki then confidently asks him if he is the leader of the organization, but it seems like Yuki gets embarrassed as the guy states that he is not. Despite that, Yuki tells him to pass the message to their leader. Yuki reminds them that the area they are in right now is his turf, and if they even plan to keep on staying, he will have no second thoughts about killing them all. But it seems like the soldier is confused at the fact that Yuki warned them first, where in fact he can easily massacre them in one go if he wants to. Yuki then explained that he just didn't want to kill all pests coming his way since it was such a pain in the ass. And just like that, it seems like Yuki's plan did go pretty smoothly, as some of the intruders left immediately after they got the message. But it seems like others are not easily persuaded. Knowing this made Luffy irritated, considering Yuki just decided to come back so nonchalantly. As Luffy pouts in dismay, Yuki says his apologies and states he will show her something interesting. Yuki reveals that he wanted to test the traps he had put around the dungeon on the soldiers who decided to stay. The Evil Eye is one of them. This trap is a golem-type dungeon monster that can send information about what it sees as a video. It uses the mana inside the dungeon to move. Other than that, Yuki also decided to add Roshgift Bomb, which is a known hallucination tree. It spreads mana that has the effect of showing hallucinations to loving beings around it. That said, all the soldiers are now killing themselves one by one, seeing each other as enemies. But it seems like Luffy thinks that these traps will hardly be able to annihilate all of them. Yuki, being the prepared person that he is, made sure that he had a plan B. It seems like he has also put other traps like acid swamps and threads everywhere. After a few hours, the whole bloody scene finally ended, but it seems like Luffy hasn't had enough. A few days later, the soldier that Yuki had talked to, who had retreated, reports to the capital what had happened in the forest. However, instead of listening to him, he got fired instead. He's so frustrated at the fact that the prince can do such a thing. In a tavern, he poured his frustration at the fact that the prince got so blinded by his own greed and sent troops to a place where monsters like that live. On the other hand, all of his emotions were heard by the Lord Yahello. As the lord who governs land near the infamous haunted forest, he would like to hire a talented soldier who just lost his job. Yahello then asked the poor soldier if he would like to accept his offer. And just like that, the plan to entwine these emotions has started. On the other hand, Yuki and the others are seen having a good time strolling around the forest. It seems like Yuki has been captivated by Luffy's beauty that when he gets caught, he just reasons out that that is the only good thing Luffy has. As they stroll deep into the forest, They were able to discover a 1,000-year-old tree as well as a monster plant that eats meat. As the day went on, they were also able to play with Rear and even rest in a beautiful, peaceful lake. Although at first, Luffy is very hesitant to play with Rear and Iduna, in the end she decided to play with everyone sometime again. The next day, as Iduna wakes them up, it seems like Yuki has gone through a race revolution. It is when someone reaches a certain level. They will evolve into the superior version of the race. This mainly occurs in races other than humans. It seems like Yuki killing many humans using his trap has changed him. Layla, who is doing research on the dungeons and demon lords, seems so fascinated with Yuki's changes that even Yuki gets a little bit uncomfortable with her piercing stares. After breakfast, Yuki is able to notice that along with his race's evolution, the list of the dungeon items has also been updated. Other than that, Luffy is also able to notice that even Yuki's mana quality has also changed. With that said, Yuki has now grown curious if Luffy has ever experienced a race evolution. It turns out that she didn't, since ancient dragons are already the strongest as is. But Yuki thinks that after Luffy reaches level 1000, she might still undergo one. Luffy has also noticed that Yuki's appearance didn't change at all compared to others who have gone through race evolution. But after Yuki checks on his wings, Luffy is left mesmerized by its changes. Luffy really wanted to touch his wings, but it seemed like Yuki didn't want to. So Luffy suggests that he could also touch hers if he lets her touch his. In the end, after they start touching each other's wings, they're caught up in a flustering situation. As a result, Yuki moves away as he might get addicted to touching it if he continues. For now, he will just focus on checking his new updates. He's now gained a skill called Building Facilities, which he can use to build his Demon Lord's castle. As he checks it, it is actually quite costly, but if he compares it to buying a castle from the catalog, then it's a lot cheaper. Now the problem lies in how much it will cost magic power and his imagination, but he strongly believes that with practice, he'll get there sooner or later. But it turned out harder than he thought. Although he somehow succeeded a bit, it was still not enough. So when Layla told him that he could increase his magic power, he asked Luffy for help. Luffy then tells him that she can lend him her magic powers if she wants to. But Luffy also states another way he can try to expand his power. It is simply by emptying his magic power, and when you already empty his magic power, his capacity will increase by a little when it regenerates. He can do so by using his water magic to train his magic power control. But a few days later, after Luffy wakes up from a long sleep, she's in shock when she sees Yuki in his new form. But thankfully, he is able to come back to his true form after he finishes imagining the image of the castle he has always wanted. Since Luffy had now woken up from her long nap, Yuki ended up taking her with him to the steppe area to show her some of the miniatures he had been able to make in the past few days. Knowing that Yuki has been doing this since he wants to build his own castle, Luffy suggested that he should just ask Layla for advice since it is known that her knowledge in building and arts is wider than hers. Yuki did mention that he had asked for Layla's advice, but she just ended up looking at his magic instead of helping him. But it seems like Yuki's skills have been improving in the past few days as Luffy would see it. All things considered, his miniatures look amazing, just like the ones Luffy had seen for herself. But Yuki has also made some weird looking miniatures like the super transforming and docking Mofudir MK2. But although it says docking and transforming, the miniature doesn't do any of it. The way that Yuki says it towards Luffy is so irritating that she eventually decides to blow it to pieces. Even Yuki is shocked at what Luffy did. Yuki is so devastated at what was happening to his masterpiece that he starts to weep in agony. Luffy comforted him, saying he would still be able to make something better right away. And just like that, Yuki's eyes sparkled once more, saying that he was indeed the most creative demon lord there was. To even boost his ego, Luffy further asks him to show her the blueprint of the castle he wants to make, as she badly wants to go back to sleep already. Yuki, who is now happy once more, confidently shows his next masterpiece called the Super Transforming and Docking Leficious MK2. This masterpiece is solely made to irritate Luffy, and to make it even worse, Yuki added some irritable remarks, saying that if he adds dark and vicious fangs, it will become a Leficious super mad version. Luffy, on the other hand, continues to blow up each of the statues that Yuki makes one after another. They continued bickering for minutes until they eventually got tired. A few days later, Yuki's preparation was complete. He takes everyone somewhere to show them his magnificent masterpiece. Iduna wonders where they are going, and Yuki simply states that they are going to spectate him, pulling off the ambition and dream of all men. Yuki is so confident that he will be able to pull it off well this time around. However, as he pushed the button, his magic drained faster than he thought. That's why he has to keep his image of the castle intact. But thankfully, thanks to Luffy's help, he's able to pull it off really well. Layla and Elwyn are so shocked and amazed at the same time by the paramount magic Yuki and Luffy have. Yuki seems to get teary-eyed as soon as he sees his dream has now come to reality. The castle built is beyond anyone's expectations. Other than Yuki, everyone is also seen happily excited about the new place, especially Iduna. However, due to its enormous size, it seems like they won't be able to live in it at all since it's so hard to get around. The corridors are so long and there are so many rooms, but it is still useful to scare the infiltrators who dare to set foot in the haunted forest. As Yuki drowns in his thoughts, Luffy hops on his lap trying to cheer him up. It seems like Luffy is not used to seeing Yuki getting all sulky, so to brighten up his mood, Luffy is willing to pamper him. Yuki did assure her that it was okay, since he will always be there to laugh it off when Luffy does something absurd. But despite it all, Yuki is indeed thankful for Luffy's effort. Meanwhile, in the Alicia Kingdom castle, the prince is so furious at the fact that the soldiers he sent failed their mission. He starts to contemplate if they would need a bigger army than before if they want to win. But he also thought that if they moved more soldiers than they were doing now, the king would eventually realize what they had been doing. The prince is quite aware of that fact, and he knows that he can't cover up for the nobles because of the mission's failure. It seems like he is aware that the nobles' trust in him has already dropped to the bottom. That's why the prince thought that the only way for them to succeed was through the help of the heroes from the church. He plans to bribe the church with a lot of money to make them go for the mission. That said, a hero named Nell has been subjected to enter Yuki's territory. Now it's a matter of time before we know what awaits of the girl who is inside a forest full of anxiety. Yuki is able to detect Nell's presence right away. He somehow can't believe that heroes do really exist in worlds like this. As a precaution, he tells everyone to go to the safe chamber in case Nell is surprisingly strong. But it seems like Yuki already knows that he will win either way. Luffy asks him if he needs her help, but Yuki quickly turns her down, saying that he has got it all under control. As Nell got closer to the dungeon, she was quite speechless when she saw the gigantic castle for the first time. Yuki, on the other hand, looks very happy and giggly as he sees that his castle frightens the so-called strong hero. But it doesn't stop there. Yuki has so much up his sleeve, and he can't wait to see how Nell will react to his traps. Nell then enters the castle no matter how scared she is. As she walks down the halls, she starts to get scared as empty armor starts moving, even though she doesn't feel any presence at all. She tries to keep her composure, but as she took another step, it seemed like the ghosts kept on following her. When one of the traps Yuki made suddenly pops out of nowhere, Nell jumps out of fear. Yuki, on the other hand, is laughing his ass off. Yuki then reveals that the ones behind the castle traps are called wraiths, which is a type of monster inside the dungeon that is composed of 3 spirits. Those 3 spirits are Ro, whose specialty is spirit magic, then there is Rei, who's good at psychokinesis, and lastly, Rui, who specializes in illusion magic. Yuki made sure that Nell won't be able to detect those 3 girls. This means that the dungeon's defense system, Haunted Mansion mode, is a great success. Yuki even thought of adding more defense systems such as Totally Killing mode and Destroy mode. But before he drowns in his fantasies, Iduna and Luffy tell him to stop playing games with Nell, who is seen crying her eyes out due to fear. Although it would spoil his fun, Yuki eventually decided to do as the girls wanted. As he gets where Nell is, he tries to explain that the things people know about him are not true. Since all this time, Nell solely believed that Yuki is a bad guy who kills innocent people. Yuki then explains to her that he is not and that he only kills those who want to harm him and his family. His statement somehow made Nell shocked. Nell then asks him if he will also kill her, considering she is there to bring harm to him. Yuki then states that he will never kill a girl or more like a brat like her. When Yuki is about to leave, Nell then stops him and asks for his help. It seems like, out of fear, Nell couldn't even move her knees. With that said, Yuki even offered her to have a bath in the inn. There, Nell starts to contemplate why she came to the castle for. Nell can't seem to grasp that the demon lord everyone is scared of is actually strangely kind-hearted. During her contemplation, Iduna also enters the bath to join her. Starting a conversation, Nell even grows fascinated to know more about Yuki, considering Iduna has nothing to say about him but good things. But it seems like Nell is unsure if she should believe the rumors about Yuki being attracted to young girls like Iduna. After their brief, refreshing bath, Nell accidentally heard Yuki and Luffy's conversation. It seems like Luffy is frustrated at the fact that Yuki has added a new addition to the number of girls in the castle. Yuki tries to explain that he had no bad intentions with Nell. All that he wanted was to help her since she had no place to stay, and it was already night. Then Layla and Eluin enter the room, saying their thanks to Nell for taking good care of Iduna while they were in the bath. Yuki is about to help Nell prepare everything she needs for the night to show his hospitality, but Luffy quickly stops her, saying that Layla and Eluin could handle it themselves. The next day, Yuki and Nell finally have a private conversation in which Yuki asks for Nell's insight regarding who has ordered her to come to the castle. Nell then states that it was the church and not the Alicia Kingdom itself. This made Yuki wonder who was really behind all these attacks. He has an idea that it would be someone affiliated with the kingdom and has great power too, but for now he will just try to get as much information as he can on his own. During this time, Nell has also found the time to ask Yuki if the rumors about him having a fetish for little girls are true. This shocked the hell out of Yuki. Yuki then explains that he couldn't do such a thing, especially to someone like Iduna, whom he sees as his little sister. But it seems like it is quite apparent that he is somewhat in a deeper relationship with Luffy. However, he can't tell much about it this time around. With that said, their brief conversation comes to an end. But Yuki has something to ask Nell for. Although at first Nell is hesitant about it, she eventually gives in and lets Yuki, together with Luffy, come with her to the town. The moment they got there, the happiness and excitement on Yuki's face was indescribable. Thankfully, Nell as a hero is able to enter the town without any questions asked. And because of that, she's able to let Yuki and Luffy join her without attracting much attention. As they got inside, Yuki was so excited that he wanted to visit every corner of the said town. A small gathering is then seen happening at the center of the town. Since Luffy couldn't view it properly, Yuki decided to let her ride on his shoulders. They then start bickering once more, but this time it was more intimate and much more flustering. Even Nell couldn't deny the fact that the two were indeed really close to each other. After the said viewing, Nell is planning to take the two into a guild, so it's better if they both quickly get their IDs first. That said, even a hero like her has no choice but to let out a dry laugh after watching the Demon Lord and Supreme Dragon in tandem. It seems like Yuki is looking forward to visiting the Adventurers Guild, but it seems like he has no idea that adventurers also kill monsters and other races. Even after knowing such information, Yuki still had the ability to smile happily. But it seems like other than that, adventurers also work as bodyguards or gather precious herbs. As Luffy remembers that a bunch of adventurers have assaulted her in the past, she somehow plans to eradicate them all. But Nell quickly asks her not to do so since it would create such a big scene. When they finally reach the Adventurers Guild, Nell immediately asks the front desk to register Luffy and Yuki as adventurers. However, it seems like the front desk couldn't believe that a young-looking lady like Luffy was planning to enter such an industry. Before they attract any more attention, Nell immediately informs the front desk that she can guarantee Yuki and Luffy's identity. And just like that, they were given forms to fill out. In the said forms, they needed to write their names in class. But knowing that Yuki and Luffy's class will create a war, they decide to act like a fool and ask the front desk what class is. The lady then states that the class describes the role one has in a battle, so Yuki and Luffy can simply fill them with what they think fits their style. One can look up their class by using the Analyze skill or the Appraisal crystal in the guild, but the non-combatant classes will also show up. But of course, they can't possibly use such magic tools considering they will get caught. So Yuki decided to disguise his status just like Luffy does. So he asks Luffy what class she thinks he is in. Luffy then states that Yuki looks like a luggage carrier. But Nell cuts their conversation, saying that the luggage carrier is a non-combatant class. Nell then decided that she should just pick the class for the two. Yuki is a swordsman and Luffy is a magician. Now that the second part of the form is filled, they will now have to enumerate the skills they are most proficient with. As Nell asks what skills they have, she's just in shock as the two keep on muttering skills that don't fit in with their class. But for some reason, they were still able to register themselves and can now officially enter a town anytime they like. As compensation, Yuki also gives Nell some monster material she could sell so that she'll have the money she has spent throughout the short trip. Yuki also got curious about the pattern engraved in the IDs, which Nell immediately explained. It is said that the pattern engraved is a ripple of the holder's magic, which people call a magic crest, and since every single person has a different pattern, it is now used to identify people. The card also shines bright and only the rightful owner can make it so. That's why nobody can pretend to be one even if they have other people's IDs. Yuki then wonders what about those people who have no magic. This made Nell confused since there's no such thing as people who have no magic power. Although it is true that there are some people who have trouble circulating their magic, there's no such thing as someone who has none at all. Moreover, for additional info, the ripple also shows which element the user has the best affinity with. In this case, Luffy is fire, but since fire has low versatility, Luffy hasn't shown it to Yuki yet. She added that she only uses it for burning things. Although she seems so embarrassed about it, Yuki still sees it as an amazing thing. For sure, her fire has an amazing warmth to it, Yuki states. This made Luffy flustered. This even made her giggle a little and hold Yuki's shirt tight. And just like that, their seemingly peaceful stroll turned a little bit gray when a group of men with sharp objects stopped them from moving any further. It seems like they thought they were up against weaklings. Little did they know that they're literally asking for a fight with two of the strongest races in the world. But as a turn of events, the group's leader somehow knew that Yuki was a demon. In exchange for keeping quiet, he asks for Yuki's money and Luffy's. However, Yuki wouldn't allow such things to happen. So as a result, Yuki rushes towards the bad guy, all furious. He grabs him by the neck while saying the words that no one can ever talk about his woman. The statement somehow made Luffy flustered very much, to the point that she almost passed out. That said, Yuki and Nell did all the work and defeated most of the wannabe strong guy's gang. But it seems like in every group, there will always be that one that is hard to defeat. One of the bad guys managed to fight against Yuki, all due to his powerful blade. Even Nell is amazed at the enemy's weapon. But it is no match with Yuki's Fortress Destroyer blade. It's a pitch black sword made by Yuki himself. It's extraordinarily heavy and any normal person can't possibly lift it. That said, as Yuki swings his sword, the enemy does the same. Although the enemy is extremely strong in many aspects, in the end, Yuki is still the one that has won the fight. The enemy can't believe that a guy like Yuki is able to defeat him that easily. Yuki then explains to him that it's simply because he didn't run even though he is a weakling. As the enemy falls to the ground, the fight has now finally reached its end. As Yuki walks towards the enemy's blade, Yuki tells Luffy that if he were to go berserk, he would beg her to stop him even if he has to cut his arms. Luffy then nods immediately, saying she'll definitely do it. Nell tries to stop Yuki from touching the blade since the negative emotions in it might overtake his body. But it seems like Yuki has already decided as he wraps his palms and carries the blade with his hands. As the negativity starts to cover the whole surroundings, Yuki fights it off by stating that they will now be under him. When the weapon starts to cool down, Yuki already has a lot of things in mind as to what he will do with it. Nell then asks Yuki after the said dark scene if he feels strange or something. He then assures her that he is all good and well, and even Luffy doesn't sense that Yuki is being cursed or anything of the like. Then, Luffy even had the time to tease Yuki about what he said earlier about her being his woman. He then says he's sorry and tries to explain that he said all that because he was just caught up in the moment. As Yuki mumbles so many words, Luffy comes closer to him and states that he doesn't need to apologize. This freezes Yuki for a bit, and as he looks into Luffy's eyes, the happiness in her is undeniable. Seeing her look that happy made Yuki flustered to the point that he couldn't even talk. Thankfully, Nell steps right in to ease the tension, and as they walk away from the scene, Luffy is seen still looking forward to eating some skewered meat. However, as they were on their way to the shops, another group of men with weapons stopped them. It seems like it's one problem after another. As fate has it, the soldier is the same soldier that Yuki has talked with in the haunted forest before. When he explains his side and his plans on seeing the governor, the soldier manages to help him have an audience with the Lord. Laylor then asks Yuki if he visited the town to exact revenge on everyone, but Yuki immediately shuts him off, saying that he doesn't and all he wants is to know who was behind all the attacks behind him. However, it seems like the Lord has no plans to tell him anything at all, so he just decided to leave. Nell, who introduced herself as the hero, stayed with the Lord to talk about it more. It seems like the landlord has a bit of trust in Nell, so he eventually states that the one who is behind this attack is the prince, not the king. It seems like the prince is caught up in the idea that the haunted forest will make the kingdom rich, even if it will cost some innocent lives. Little did the Lord know that Yuki had put some evil ears to eavesdrop on their conversation. That said, Yuki ended up still knowing that it was actually the prince all along. Now the problem is, he can't simply kill the prince easily since it will create war, and he didn't want to drag Luffy and the others into it. So instead of saying his plans to Luffy, he decided to keep it to himself and just find a resolution silently, all with the aim of protecting the girls' peaceful lives. Yuki states his appreciation of the inn that they have stayed in. He really enjoyed the accommodation so much. However, on the other hand, Luffy seems to feel the total opposite, as she still prefers their home over some inn. Hearing the word home come out of Luffy somehow made Yuki smile. Yuki enjoyed everything from the food and service, but the only thing he wished was for them not to share one bed. Yuki and Luffy are then seen roaming the city once again. After a bit of walking, they were able to pass by the governor's mansion once more. Yuki immediately says hi to Nell, whom they saw going out of the mansion with the governor. They were shocked as they saw the governor still with Nell. It seems like the governor also ought to see Yuki as he is planning to ask about the cursed weapon. Yuki then jokingly said that he thought the governor had come to go sightseeing with them. The governor then states that he humbly refuses and that Yuki is correct, as he is hoping that, if possible, Yuki is able to give him the details of the cursed weapon's owner as well. As Yuki gets his hands on the weapon, he immediately examines it and shows it to everyone. Everyone, including the governor and the knights, are shocked as they saw Yuki touching the weapon like it's nothing. The governor then asks him if he is alright, even after touching it. Yuki then answers yes, since he has already tamed it. At first, the governor didn't want to believe it, as there was no way possible someone could ever tame a cursed weapon. As a result, he then asks Yuki if he could keep the weapon away, as it's too stimulating for everyone. Yuki then looks around, and it seems like the knights are trembling in fear. They then start to wonder if the hero looks completely fine because of the differences in their statuses. On the other hand, Yuki is contemplating, as Luffy is also able to touch the weapon without having any side effects. The previous owner was quite strong compared to your everyday. Thus, the weapon was probably letting him raise his level beyond what he should be capable of. But as Yuki thinks of it, the previous owner seemed to still be partially in possession of the faculties, so Yuki guessed he hadn't been using the weapon for very long. Looking at everyone's reaction, it seems like the weapon is really that dangerous, and Yuki is only finding it out now. Moreover, it seems like such thoughts have also been bothering Yuki for quite some time now, so he thanks the governor for informing him. Now then, he already knows how fatal the weapon is. The only thing that the governor is asking from Yuki is for him not to cause any problems from now on. Yuki then quickly explains that he's just going to go sightseeing around the city, so the governor has nothing to worry about. Aside from that, the governor seems to think that it would be much better if Yuki would just return back to the forest now. With an awkward smile on his face, Yuki is so amazed at how blunt the governor is towards him. On the other hand, Luffy then compliments how the food in the city is really amazing, so the governor doesn't need to worry, as she will never allow it to be destroyed. Hearing this somehow made the governor feel obligated to reward food vendors for that. As Yuki, Nell, and Luffy leave the mansion while walking down the streets, Yuki asks Nell if it really is okay for her to hang out with her enemy all the time. Nell then answers by stating that it's far better if she's keeping an eye on Yuki and the others after all. Also, she's not from the city, so she doesn't really know the way around. That's why she would rather chill and stick with Yuki than with other strangers in the city. Hearing this made Yuki thankful. At least she had informed them as early as possible. With that said, Yuki then states that he wants to go to a weapon store and a bookstore. On the other hand, Luffy wants to visit a food vendor that serves either delicious meals or sweets. Nell then immediately noted all of their requests, and they were now on their way to the closest one. As they enter a weapon shop, we can all see how happy Yuki is. Nell then informs them that the shop they visited is a shop that even the knights use, so they should sell lots of top quality equipment there. Yuki then did his thing and walked around the store. One sword caught his attention, and when he reads its information, it was called the Sword of the Ancient Hero. It is said that a long time ago, a nameless hero raised his hand to protect others and defeated countless powerful opponents. However, this sword holds a mere fraction of its former power. Its quality is so immeasurable. Seeing how excited Yuki is, it seems like Luffy is happy that he looks like he has changed into something worthwhile. Yuki then starts to think about where and when he will use the ancient sword. He starts to think, what if he used to reforge the sword? Wouldn't the end result be something spectacular, he thought? When using alchemy, as long as one can run magic through them, one can use any amount of materials and combine them into one weapon. Yuki then asks Luffy if there's another thing that he could use as material. Yuki then asks her if she wants anything, he'll definitely get it for her. Luffy quickly shuts him off, saying that she doesn't need weapons. All she wants is food. Already getting bored of looking at Yuki and getting so amazed at his toys, Luffy quickly asks Yuki to hurry up, as there are still a myriad of places they're going to visit. With that said, they then went on to the next place. Now that they've already handed the hungry Luffy some money, he can now take his time looking around. Yuki then went on to visit the bookstore. As he smells the scent of the books, he quickly realizes that books are really quite popular in this world. He looks around, and when he finally finds what he is looking for, he immediately gets it from the shelves. Basics of magic, the book says. At this rate, he can't keep relying on the magic circuit for the magic transfer after all. That's why he's planning to improve it by leveling up his skills. With this book, he's able to make the most heinous weapon with tons of enchantment. You're seeing his fire life skill plus poison plus a little bit of burn, sleep, and freeze. He's able to reach his goals in no time. As he opens the book, he never thought he would have a hard time understanding the words in it. Although he can read it with his skill, if he doesn't understand any word, there's no way possible that he'll be able to upgrade his skills. Although he felt a little bit gleaned, he would not let such circumstances go against his plans. That's why such obstacles won't quench his passion. As a result, he plans to begin studying as soon as he gets back. Now it's time to meet up with the others once more. As he checks the map to see where Luffy is, seeing that she is pretty close, Yuki immediately makes his way there. As he steps into the buzzing market, he is astonished to see that a lot of men are trying to flirt with the girls. As a result, Yuki immediately jumps right in to quote-unquote save them. Yuki then bluntly states to the group of men that the two girls are his companions, so if they want to hit on the girls, they need to do it somewhere else. With his powerful and manly aura, it seems like the guys are immediately intimidated by Yuki's presence. Nell then immediately thanks Yuki for what he did. He then states to her that she doesn't have to take people like No seriously, as they will only get over themselves. Nell then immediately nods her head and states that she now fully understands. However, isn't Yuki handling everything too well? Yuki then states that it is all from his experience in his previous life. Now, Yuki then asks Nell once again to take them to a restaurant as they are now going to eat some delicious food. Hearing this made Nell amazed, as it seemed like the two hadn't eaten enough yet. With nothing she can do, Nell then takes the two to a very popular restaurant in the city. She then states how amazed she is at how the two eat so much. Now that she has said it, Yuki has realized that he has been hungry most of the time after they arrived at the city. Luffy then reasons that the mana in the city is thinner compared to the haunted forest after all. That's maybe why they always want to eat to supplement that energy. This made Yuki amazed, as the energy needed to maintain the body of a demon lord is that much. With that said, Yuki then digs in with his food once more. While eating, Yuki then remembers something to ask Nell about. He asked her what the governor said about the demon blade. Although she was a bit hesitant, she thought that maybe it was okay to say it. She starts off by saying that there were some other cases similar to what's happening now. Yuki then asks if Nell is implying that there are multiple people who own cursed demon blades. Nell then immediately states that she doesn't think there is any other demon blade owner. Cases like where someone who is kind-hearted suddenly becomes violent and starts killing people, or people suddenly going on a rampage and wrecking everything happens more often. Although it may seem like a coincidence, it seems like it isn't. However, it seems like such cases increased highly from the start of this month, and when the governor couldn't think of any reason for it happening, the story of the demon blade came up. Moreover, Nell also states that while they were interrogating those people, they said they got the demon blade from a certain person. Hearing all this made Yuki realize why the city is quite noisy. This means there is someone who scattered something that can make people go crazy, like that demon blade. Yuki then asks if someone is targeting the city. Nell then answers that she doesn't have anyone in mind except for Yuki and the others. Yuki then quickly states that they didn't do anything at all, which Nell is quite aware of. However, not everyone in the city thinks the same. That's why if Yuki still intends to sightsee, he must ensure to be careful as much as possible. Although Yuki himself might be okay, it would be dangerous if Luffy were to encounter someone strange. For the time being, Nell thinks that the best thing the two can do to ensure their safety is making sure to stick together at all costs. With all that laid, Nell then asks them what's their plan for the night. Are there still some places they want to go to? Yuki then answers that he has already finished all his objectives, so if there are any tourism spots they can visit, that would be awesome. However, not to spoil the fun, but it seems like for a rural city like this one, There's no such thing as a tourist spot, as the city is always jam-packed with adventurers day and night. That's why, to kill some time while having fun, the demon lord Yuki is testing on taking a guild quest. Outside the city wall, the three are preparing to finish a quest. However, it seems like Nell is a bit worried about Yuki's decision, although she is quite aware of the fact that Yuki is very strong. However, the danger level of the two monsters he took is disaster level. With a wide smile on his face, Yuki assures her that he will be fine, as the monsters in the quest are weaker than the monster in the haunted forest after all. Yuki then thought, won't it be a cinch for Nell too? Nell then answers that if it is 1 versus 1, then yes. However, those two monsters Yuki wants to go against usually move in groups, so she just wants Yuki not to let his guard down no matter what. Yuki then had the time to tease Nell, stating that she was just so weak-willed. As a result, he then asks Luffy if she can show some of her powers. However, it seems like Luffy didn't like how Yuki talked with his teasing voice. As a result, instead of teaming up with him, Yuki almost got punched by Luffy. That said, Luffy, using her skills and power as the magical dragon, is able to sense a number of enemies even from a distance. Without any second wasted, Luffy then initiates the quest by activating her power. However, before she can even expel her magic, Yuki immediately stops her, as she almost uses the same spell she used to destroy Mofurira MK, Yuki's amazing robot invention. That's why before the landscape is scorched in fire, Yuki stops her at the right moment. Luffy somehow did hear out Yuki's request. That's why she then intends to use another one of her spells. Seeing a ball of water floating above Luffy's palms, Yuki then asks her what it is. When he thought such a small ball of water wouldn't really do much damage, he was shocked when Luffy released it, and it literally almost destroyed a small chunk of the forest. But it seems like the spell uses compressed water and makes a world inside it while increasing the pressure. So if there's any impact from outside, it will explode like a bomb. Seeing how powerful Luffy is made Nell so speechless. Well, it's true that Luffy is good at magic, but she can easily destroy a human city without using magic at all. Now that even made Nell amazed. Seeing how powerful Luffy is, Nell then asks her what her race is. She is so shocked, as if her soul literally left her body when Luffy tells her that she is an ancient dragon. Nell couldn't believe such a thing, as isn't the race known to be stronger from within the vibrations of dragon races. Yuki then enters the conversation, stating that Luffy is not just the one, but she is the supreme one of them all. Although she looks like a brat and her personality is like that, there's no doubt why most people don't realize her true identity. After hearing that Luffy is literally the supreme dragon that everyone fears, Nell couldn't grasp why she takes orders and follows Yuki all the time. Before Yuki can even answer Nell's question, Luffy immediately shuts him off, reminding him that she still has a reputation to keep. With that said, the two then continue to bicker while Nell looks at them happily and entertained. In the end, they failed the first subjugation quest because of Luffy, as everyone ran away and only stupid monsters like goblins stayed. With that said, the fun continues between the three of them. Meanwhile, in some areas around the city, a group of people in dark robes is having a meeting about the demon blade being stolen. After hearing such news, the men seem to not believe it at first. Some even wondered if it was all the governor's doing. Their leader then immediately states that it isn't. It was just picked up by some random tourist whom their men had picked a fight with. The members were a bit shocked by the revelation, as they never thought that a demon blade user was defeated that easily. Their leader then states that they can't blame the previous holder, since there are not many people who can keep their sanity after holding a demon blade. After all, he's just a mere thug indeed. That's why right now, they plan just to brainwash the tourists and store the demon blade once again. However, from what they have heard, the thief who got the demon blade doesn't seem to be affected by the demon blade even the slightest, so brainwashing him would be impossible. So there is a change of plan, and there's no need to hold back anymore. It seems like the group has something up their sleeves that is very dark and evil. Their leader then asks his members to pile up the corpses of their neighbors and go step over their friends' corpses, throw away their lives and themselves, all for the sake of their homeland. Meanwhile, Yuki and Luffy then part with Nell after their mini-failed quest. As they walk back to the inn, Yuki states how happy he is that Nell has surely already gotten accustomed to them. But it sure is a shame that they can't be here together with everyone who stayed at home. Yuki then bet it would be merrier and more fun if they were with them. But it sure is unexpected. Hearing it all come out from Luffy's mouth seems to be a bit astonishing for Yuki, as we all might probably already know that Luffy is really that type who doesn't give a damn about anyone. So hearing her missing the girls back at home is just unbelievable. Luffy then states that it might be true to think that the day she would feel disappointed for someone's absence would come. Yuki then states how happy he is that he is able to spend time strolling the city with Luffy. However, the whole mood then suddenly is interrupted when a woman screams for her life as she leaves the store. Then a man who looks very ill comes out of the store. Yuki then thought that maybe it was a monster. That's why before things get out of control, he then tries to stop it as soon as he possibly can. However, after his attack, it seems like the man doesn't feel a thing at all. That's when Luffy realizes that the man is already dead and there's just someone controlling it from a long distance. Yuki then asks her what the only way they can be able to stop the monster, aka zombie. Luffy then states that the only way is to burn the body to ashes. But before they do so, they must find out who the people behind it are. It seems like Luffy is really pissed off at people who use dead people as a weapon for war. As a result, they will make sure to do their best to find who is behind this whole thing by asking for help from the guards. While people are now in chaos, the city's bell sound starts to echo to everyone. This even made everyone panic as the noise was the emergency evacuation warning. The last time the bell rang, there was a flock of dragons coming to the city. One after another, people start running to the safest place they can hide. While the people are in chaos, Yuki lets Luffy wait as he uses his concealment skill and takes a look from the sky. Meanwhile, Nell is seen fighting a horde of zombies coming at her. Using her magic, she chants a spell called Turn Undead that will make the undead return to their world. Even Nell finds the whole situation so bizarre, as the city doesn't have such events happening all of a sudden. As a result, she also aims to find who's behind all of it. On the other hand, at the governor's mansion, refugees are flocking in one after another. The governor doesn't think of anyone who can do such a thing other than the prince. That's why right now, what he has to do is swing his sword for his citizens. He will never ever let the city fall back to its downfall ever again. As the whole city is in chaos, Yuki, who is seeing an overview of the situation from the sky, sees how really awful the whole situation is. But it seems like adventurers are keeping up a good fight. As Yuki observes how the adventurers are fighting these zombies, he's able to notice that they cut off the zombies' limbs, then force them to drink the holy water. It turns out that there is a proper way to deal with the zombies. That's why it seems like the adventurers will take care of everything after all. However, Yuki still is trying to think of just who and why did the people behind this whole situation do such a horrible thing. Yuki doesn't seem to detect any intruders other than the zombies, so he came to the conclusion that whoever was behind the whole incident had no objective of overtaking the whole city. If it is not the city, then what? Yuki starts to wonder if the bad guys did this to buy some time, or either way, they must be concerned about how it goes in the city. That's why if there's no one controlling them in the city, then it means they are somewhere out in the walls. As Yuki uses his navigation skills, it seems like he has finally found them. Meanwhile, before we dive right into the climax, let's first check on Nell once again. Nell continued to fight the zombies while chanting her undead spell when Yuki came across her. Yuki then hands her a drink she can sip. Nell is in deep shock when she realizes that Yuki has handed her a high-grade mana potion, which means it's literally a luxury drink. On the other hand, Yuki now decides to call for Luffy to let her come to them, so he asks Nell to hold on for a little while as they wait for Luffy's arrival. Yuki then informs her that he has found a suspicious group of people lurking outside the city that he thinks might be behind all of this. That's why Yuki plans to smash all of them in one go. Nell, who really wants to help, offers to join Yuki on his mission. However, before Nell can even finish talking, Yuki immediately shuts her off, saying that she can't leave since Luffy is coming. Without any choice, Nell is left alone to wait for Luffy and do as Yuki says. However, as a show of her appreciation, she tells Yuki that in return, she will do anything for him when he returns. Yuki then finds a way to tease her before he leaves. This leaves the flustered Nell all alone. As Yuki made his way outside the city, he was able to come across 5 groups of men. Seeing that there are only 5 people, it's fewer than what Yuki has thought. Within seconds of arriving, Yuki immediately slashes some of the 5 people. This shocks their leader, as they never thought that a demon lord would interfere with their plans. The enemies then summon the army from hell using their magical powers. A group of animal-looking monsters then appear. It is said that they are far stronger than the undead that the enemies have sent to the city. That's why they are so confident that this is the end of Yuki, the demon lord. However, instead of getting nervous, it seems like Yuki is quite confident that he is able to defeat them all in one go. He even calls the monsters from hell gross. As Yuki advances to attack, the enemy seems so cocky that Yuki has now fallen into his trap. However, little did he know that Yuki was already aware of such traps. As a result, Yuki uses Dispel Magic, which is magic, to destroy other magic. This magic will infiltrate the magic configuration and destroy it. One will need a large amount of magic power to use such a skill. In the end, Yuki still has the last laugh as he ends the life of the enemy. 2 days after the undead uproar, it seems like the city is getting back to normal. However, this city is still a dangerous one. Well, the damage to the building seems a bit minimal, considering most of it was burned by Luffy's fire magic or destroyed by her water magic. Not only that, but they also take care of the corpses and the injured swiftly. On the other hand, it seems like Yuki didn't kill the enemy after all, since he handed him to the governor for interrogation. The governor seemed quite up for the job after all. And they were quite lucky that the magic circle Yuki found on his way back was the one that was summoning the undead. But no matter how fun the city is, Yuki seems like he's getting homesick. Luffy, on the other hand, seems to feel the same thing. To compensate for the gloomy mood, Yuki handed Luffy a gift. As Luffy opens up her palms, she's quite shocked when she sees that it is a ring. Luffy is quite speechless as to why Yuki would give her a ring. Yuki then explained while stuttering that he thought it would look good on Luffy, and that's why he bought it. It is known that any normal rings will break when Luffy reverts to her dragon form. That's why Yuki has decided to give her a flexible ring. This ring can change its size according to the user's finger size. This made Luffy think that Yuki might want her to wear it all the time. Yuki, who's now caught off guard, tries to explain his side. Then out of nowhere, Luffy hands over the ring to him again. This makes Yuki shocked as it seems like she's returning it back to him. However, as a turn of events, it seems like all that Luffy is asking is for Yuki to put the ring on her finger. After all, he is the one who got it for her. As Yuki puts on the ring, Luffy looks the happiest she has ever been. He then tells her thanks while looking so gracefully at Yuki. That said, after their mini romantic moment, Yuki and Luffy finally decided to go back home. They both look so happy as they enter the house. Iduna then comes running towards Yuki, whom she misses the most. While the maids and Iduna are celebrating the two's arrival, even she, who seems to have undergone a race evolution, got so many physical and skill changes than anyone could imagine. She is now able to mirror and replicate another form, more like a shapeshifter. Aside from that, she now has healing magic, which is very useful in times of need. As Yuki checks up on Shi's stats, he is so amazed that it has risen so much since the last time he saw them. Her magic is even higher than the average person in town. Yuki then remembers something that Layla had said before. Layla said that demons would have their race evolution more quickly compared to other races after all. Since she has the predator skill, maybe she also got some bonus from there. However, aren't her stats growing at a really high pace? They try to contemplate everything when Luffy finally thinks of something. She thinks it might be because she gave Shi her magic periodically. Well, thinking of it, it does make sense since Luffy's magic is denser compared to others. Yuki then asks her if she considers how strong her magic is. It's as effective as a rare candy. However, Luffy doesn't know it at all. Hearing this from Yuki made Luffy state that Yuki does say some strange things from time to time. Meanwhile, she is so happy to hear that she has finally evolved. As for Yuki, he seems to be painting a fearless smile of the strong on his face, since to think that there are some changes even though they just left for a few days is so astonishing. He was also surprised when he saw monsters when he opened the flatlined area too. To make it even more surprising, these monsters are actually Fenrir servants. Well, it is something not least expected from a legendary class monster like Fenrir, but his status is far higher than Yuki himself. That's why it's not strange for him to have 100 or 200 servants. That said, Yuki then thought of bringing Fenrir for a hunt one of these days. But for now, Yuki just plans to relax in his sweet home for a while. After some good resting, the next day, Yuki immediately went on to do his work. Today they will make a new weapon, and they will be using different ingredients such as a cursed demon blade, orichalcum, ancient hero's weapon, and magic power. After you have prepared everything, you just need to use your magic power and let it flow to the ingredients as you activate your skill. And the finished product will look like an item called Zion. It is a rainbow-colored blade that has taken the shape of a katana, made by the demon lord Yuki. It despises sin and will not forgive sinful people, delivering punishment to them. The blade will become sharper and keep getting stronger by sucking the living being's blood. While being equipped, this item will give a great boost to its user. Its quality is immeasurable. It is a sword that will annihilate every sin with its bloody blade. Seeing the weapon he has ever wished for come to life makes Yuki so happy. He seems so amazed at how cool the sword looks. On top of that, it's a weapon that has growth. Talk about how ideal a weapon could be. Meanwhile, Yuki's two maids are quite amazed at how the sword looks and its unimaginably big size. Layla, who has knowledge of katana, explains that katana is a weapon that originates from the eastern country. Lewin, who is from the wolf tribe, tries to carry the big sword with all confidence that she is able to do so easily. However, as soon as Yuki lets go of the sword, it seems like it literally weighs millions of pounds by just seeing how Lewin is struggling even to move it an inch. After that, Yuki then decided to play with his new toy. He goes out for a hunt with Rear to try it out. He then promises the girls that he'll come back home before dinner. As soon as he comes across a monster, Yuki immediately slices them off like nothing. The sharpness of the sword is beyond expectation, and because of its status boost, Yuki's body feels really light. Moreover, it's really cool looking as well. That's why whoever will get the sword in the future will be amazed. After such intense training, Yuki went back home to chill one more time. While he is reading his book, Layla then comes to ask him, asking him why he's reading a book in such a strange position. Yuki then answers that he wants to inscribe a magic circuit to Zion, but he doesn't understand a thing about it. That's why Layla, out of nowhere and quite surprisingly, made Yuki shocked when she offered him she'll teach him how to if he wants. She starts off by stating that, as many have known, to use magic, one would usually use chanting to create the frame of that magic, and then pour one's magic power to activate it. On the other hand, a magic circuit uses an inscribed word and symbol as its frame. Doing so, one doesn't need to do any chanting and just pour one's magic power into the magic circuit. If Layla puts it in the term of origin magic, she just asks Yuki to imagine putting all the images needed to cast magic into a drawing, as this is the easiest way to understand it. Hearing all this from Layla makes Yuki amazed, and at the same time, quite happy as he is now slowly understanding the whole concept of the magic circuit. Layla, who hasn't finished discussing her lecture, states that for starters, they will take a fireball for example. It will be divided into 3 circuits, which are making the fireball, maintaining the fireball, and shooting the fireball. One can also add options like controlling the shot fireball, or changing the shot fireball shape if they'd like to. So the magic won't be properly activated if the magic circuit is not fully connected. But if it's too big, the magic circulation will be slow. This means the magic circuit is like drawing without lifting your pen at all. Then if it works as long as it's connected, the 3-dimensional circuit will work too. After such a long conversation, Layla then states that she'll leave already as she has something she needs to do right away. Meanwhile, Yuki has decided to chill for a while with Iduna and Shi. The next day, Yuki is seen having a great time with Luffy fishing. It seems like the whole gang is having a picnic once again. Even though the whole trip is quite amazing, it seems like Yuki and Luffy's bickering is never ending. As a result, even Iduna tried to stop them already. The whole family then is seen having the best times of their life, just eating and enjoying life. In the end, Yuki and Luffy seem to have a really soft spot for one another. After their trip, Nell then meets up with Yuki to inform him of something important. It seems like the prince has instigated a coup d'etat. Right now, the king and the princess's whereabouts are unknown. It seems like the Demon Lord has let his guard down so much that he literally got so comfortable and forgot about the enemy and the ongoing problem with the prince. It seems like the Demon Blade incident and the undead uproar were just distractions in order to buy some time. The real intention was to kill this governor's head in the means of confusion. Well, it all ended in naught since Yuki ended everything in a flash though. Well, although they have succeeded in having Alfiro's soldiers stay inside the city, all of that was against the expedition plan. Alfiro has the strongest army power after all. Yuki then asks if those men in black spit out that information. However, according to Nell, it seems like the authorities have used some drugs and brainwashing magic in the process to make the enemies talk. However, despite that, they couldn't get the information in their head as there was magic preventing them from speaking about it. And to make things even worse, the king and the princess have now gone missing. The prince's faction now controls the capital since the politics are completely under their control, and they can't really do anything about it. Now, if they only knew the king and the princess were still alive, they could raid the capital in the name of saving them. And if they know that the two have died, they can still raid the place to deliver punishment. However, currently, there is no information that can get the anti-prince faction to move. And the only thing they can do right now is wait for a sort of miracle. Even if it's just to buy some time, it's truly troublesome. If that damned prince keeps sitting on the throne and has full control of the army, isn't there a high probability that he will invade the whole place? Yuki then asks Nell what are the church's plans about this. Nell then states that if the hard-headed prince were to have political power, then he would surely put heavy pressure on the church. Or at least that's what Nell's speculations are based on the prince's past actions. The church is planning to rescue the king in the near future. However, for one, they can't really do that much. Yuki then states that he guesses it's a normal conclusion, even if they don't know whether the king is alive or not. As a result, Yuki is offered to lend his hand in the said rescue plan. Hearing this made Nell shocked. Although it sounds really reassuring, it seems like a bit too much for a literal demon lord like Yuki. Yuki then explains that since the current king is against the invasion of the haunted forest, then he is better off with him instead of the prince. Everything would end faster if you just assassinated the prince himself. But there might be problems coming from them searching for the culprit behind the assassination, and there is a risk that he might be found out. So it's better to move in another shadow for now instead. That's why Yuki has a plan to make sure the anti-prince faction works hard in order to defeat the prince. But he doesn't think that they will just trust and accept his aid, Nell states. It's not like they'll say it frankly like that. Knowing that being a demon lord would intimidate everyone, Yuki has decided to put on some masks or disguises. However, Nell thinks that his cover would blow up right away though, knowing how clumsy and unbothered Yuki is. However, with all assurance on his face, Yuki tells Nell to leave everything to him as he already has a plan in mind. With that said, the meeting has now ended and Nell makes her way out of the forest. But this time, not alone, but with Yuki. Yuki then says his goodbyes to the girls, who wish him to have a safe trip. Even Luffy, who is known to be such a cold-hearted person, gets closer to Yuki and holds his face, saying that just because she is not by his side doesn't mean he can go around flirting with other girls and come home late. Left speechless by what Luffy said, Yuki only says yes immediately. Luffy then states that it's all good as long as he gets it. She also assures Yuki that everything is in control as she will make sure the girls would be safe at all times. With that said, Yuki and Nell then hop on Fenrir and make their way to the capital. That night, the girls are having a girls' talk where they talk about how they feel so comfortable with Yuki. Lewin then reasons that she feels that the reason why it feels so cozy being around Yuki is because of his magic power. Leffy then agrees, as Yuki's magic power has a different nature based on the individual after all. Although it is a bit hard for Leffy to explain it, she doesn't really get it as well. But one thing is for sure, Yuki's magic power has a kind of power to attract others. Not only Iduna, but even the hero like Nell herself. She somehow referred to it as a womanizer talent. On the other hand, it seems like Iduna has something to ask Leffy for a while now. She is able to notice the ring that Yuki has given Leffy, so she is curious about it. When asked, it seems like Leffy was caught a little bit off guard, as she is now a bit flustered while stating that she is able to receive the ring from Yuki. Hearing this made the girls excited, as they thought that Yuki might have proposed to Iduna already. Iduna then states while stuttering that it's not the case at all, but the girls have now grown curious about what Leffy really thinks of Yuki, as they seem to get along well. There are even some instances that the girls are able to witness both of them being close at a glance. Leffy then only states that she doesn't know, since it's the first time she's ever experienced such a thing. It was her first time meeting someone who didn't face her with fear and hostility. It's her first time spending so much time with someone else. Every day sure is fun, but she hasn't had this experience in the past, so she can't really compare it. That's why she still doesn't know what she feels about him. With that said, their talk has continued throughout the night. Meanwhile, Yuki and Nell have now finally reached the capital. However, it seems like the whole capital is on high alert, as the walls are guarded very heavily. As a result, Yuki has decided to use his stealth skill to get in. Now this marks the Demon Lord and the hero duo charging in. After they have successfully entered the capital walls, Nell nags at Yuki for treating her a bit harshly during their unexpected flight. Yuki, who is also a bit guilty, says his apologies immediately. However, he had also emphasized the fact that he had warned her before he even lifted her off. Yuki, who has no idea how loud he speaks, almost caught the guard's attention. Nell immediately shuts him off, saying that she'll get incriminated in no time if anyone sees them together. Since the guards are already going their way, Nell has decided to shut her mouth as well and continue their bickering later. As the guards rushed to where they landed, Yuki and Nell left the place discreetly. As they take a peaceful walk down the capital's alleyways, Yuki somehow manages to notice that the place is awfully quiet. Nell then shows her frustration, considering she knows that the city is usually vibrant and not this expectably dull. It seems like current affairs have the capital residents scared for their lives. On the other hand, while Nell is getting all gloomy and sentimental, Yuki is seen putting on his disguise, an awkward mask. He decided to do so just in case, since he is, after all, the demon lord that everyone fears. He wouldn't want a bunch of baby-faced church folk to remember his face. However, despite his efforts, Nell warns him that he must not think that there's any point in hiding his face. But he must not grumble if they say they won't let him into the church's hideout. Yuki then states that by that time, he will move on his own however he sees fit. He will also state that it would be nice if they could twist the story into the church people overthrew the prince. Suppose he could get more information, he'd be really grateful. In the middle of their conversation, Nell notices something they didn't expect at all. A horde of zombies is now coming their way. Yuki then states that he knew something was up the moment they got to the capital, and since there were too many of them, they decided to take a detour. However, Yuki knows that they can't do that either, and it seems like Yuki was right. It turns out that due to his navigating abilities, he pretty much knows or has an idea where the zombies are. However, the only thing that confuses Yuki is the fact that the guards are just letting these things roam free, and it doesn't look like they're trying to get rid of them at all. This leads them to the conclusion that maybe the guards are doing such a thing on purpose. As a result, they ended up taking care of some on their own. Nell still uses her undead spell, which intrigues Yuki. After asking what that holy magic was, Nell then states that the church has taught her about it, and she teasingly states that she bet it will work great on the evil demon lord as well. As Yuki fights the zombies hand in hand, Nell effortlessly chants her spell and voila, everything is solved. As Yuki slowly observes Nell's spell chanting, he realizes that using a chant could affect the power output of a spell. Other than that, Yuki has also noticed that even though Nell doesn't seem like it, but she is actually quite scared of the undead. Nell then reasons that it's quite scary when one can't hurt the enemy, so she guesses purification magic might do the trick. However, isn't it the priest's job to purify such creatures? After all, Nell's job description is just to give public law and order, and it's not her job to bust ghosts. As a result, she gets really scared during the fight. After such a long walk while fighting some zombies, they finally reach the hideout. As Nell knocks on the wooden door, states the secret code, and shows her sigil, they are then permitted to enter. The organization is quite grateful for her safe return. However, before they enter, the organization needs to take a good look at her face before they let her in, since it is an addition to their protocol. After confirming Nell's identity, a girl with long silky hair then hugs her tightly. The woman seems so worried about Nell and is really thankful for her safe return. The woman's name is Carlota, and it seems like she's a member of the organization that is closest to Nell. Nell then states that she is terribly sorry for failing the mission. Carlota then assures her that everything is alright. After all, the mission given to her was an impossible one to begin with. All that matters now is that Nell is safe. After a brief catching up, Carlota has finally taken notice of Yuki. Stuttering, it seems like Nell is really worried that Carlota will find out that she literally brought the supposed enemy she intended to kill back to the church. Without any more reason she can think of, Nell just states that Yuki is her follower and they've met during the mission. She also states that Yuki is quite talented, so she thought that maybe they could use his help. Yuki then talks, introducing himself as Y, the assistant. However, it seems like Carlota is a bit suspicious of Yuki and is hesitant if the organization can really trust him. It seems like his strange mask is the reason for all these suspicions. Before Carlota can dig deeper into Yuki, Nell steps right in, assuring her that Yuki is not a bad person at all. That said, if Nell trusts him so much, then Carlota is cool with it. After all, right now, they need as many capable people as they can get their hands on, so adding Yuki to the group wouldn't really hurt that much. That said, the three of them then enter the house. As Yuki steps right into the entrance, he felt this strange tingly feeling. It seems like the church has a way of checking if someone really has the abilities by just looking at the initial security checkup. Since Yuki could pass through the door, it means that he doesn't have malicious intent towards the church, and this made Carlota trust Yuki even more. She also states that Yuki doesn't need to be alerted with all these fancy securities since the church just doesn't want careless people entering their hideout after all. As she further checks on Yuki's information, she finds out that he is a human, and his mask doesn't seem like a magic tool either. Yuki then proudly states that, of course, he is definitely human since he only tagged along with Nell to help her. Although Yuki seems to be so calm on the outside, he is actually quite nervous on the inside. Thankfully, he was able to acquire that disguise skill. Nell, who is really curious as to how Yuki did such a thing, asks him what he did. Yuki then states that he just played around with the status so that he would not get suspected. With that said, Nell is quite relieved now after hearing all that. Yuki made his status around 2 levels lower than Nell's, and he only kept skills that wouldn't cause problems. But Yuki doesn't want to rely on this too much since it will be obvious to the other party if their disguise skill is of a higher level. With that said, Carlota has now brought them to a secret door leading to a secret tunnel. Yuki seems so excited about everything. However, we can clearly see on Carlota's face that the path is indeed dangerous, and Yuki should watch his step. Meanwhile, Luffy, who is left back at home, looks like she really misses Yuki that badly. However, no matter how far apart they are, her feelings are still the same. Going back to Yuki and the others in the capital, Nell had found the guts to ask Carlota about when did the undead appear in the capital. Carlota then states that the first appearance was reported about 2 weeks prior to Nell and Yuki's arrival, the same thing as the start of the Prince's Rebellion. After hearing this, it is now safe to think that they have appeared because of the Prince's order. From looking at how the soldiers act against the undead, it's safe to think like that. On the other hand, Yuki then thought that even if the prince really could control the undead, this is not something a man who is seated on the top of a country would do. Yuki can't seem to comprehend what the prince is planning to do. Carlota then states her frustration at the fact they are having quite a hard time taking care of them since there are so many. That's why the church has created an investigation team in search of the origin of the undead, but they still didn't find any clues at all. Knowing that Yuki has some ability to navigate anything from miles away, Nell asks him if he can help with the search, and it seems like Yuki is up to it as well. That said, he will give it a try as soon as the next day comes. With that said, they have now reached the end of the tunnel, and Yuki is in amazement as he sees a high-ceiling church with such glamorous decor. Carlota then informs Yuki that the church is always put under surveillance, so they can't really do anything using the main building, which is open to the public. Since they are about to have a strategy meeting, Carlota has asked Yuki and Nell to join everybody. With their mini introduction, it turns out that Carlota is an important person, as she is actually the Faldiana Holy Knights captain and the commander of the operation. Even Nell, who has high status, couldn't even defeat Carlota, no matter how many times she tried. She has a lot of weapon-related skills, and the levels are really high, and her dexterity is really high, just like Nell. But as Luffy said, no one can win with just stats alone against a person with high skill. A person without training can be a genius, but they are destined to be suppressed by a commoner with training. With that said, the strategy meeting has now officially begun. The plan aims for the remaining soldiers to infiltrate the royal castle. While they are distracted over there, half of the soldiers inside the city as well as the soldiers waiting outside the city will attack the headquarters of the prince's faction. The first priority is to rescue the king and the princess, and if possible, capture the prince. So this made Yuki think that the king might be imprisoned in the dungeon below the castle. Since he wants to threaten, he might as well save the king himself. The said operation will start at midnight tomorrow when the church bell rings. As the meeting was finally done, Carlota decided to take Yuki and Nell to some nice place where they could stay and relax. However, before they can even leave the hidden church, the group has found themselves yet in another fight with some lousy zombies. When Carlota asks her soldiers if they know the origin of the undead, it seems like nobody in the group knows where it is. Yuki then gets curious as to how did the undead even find them. It turns out that sewers connect the secret hideout. However, Nell did ensure that no one can easily get to where they are, as the sewers act like a never-ending maze. Aside from that, the prince's faction also uses a magic circle to make the whole plan possible. With that said, as they couldn't get the origin where the undead was coming from, Yuki has decided to give the group a hand as he would use his navigation skills to find the said origin. Yuki, however, keeps emphasizing that he might not find it, as Carlota might get a bit suspicious of his abilities. After some few minutes of navigating, Yuki is able to find the origin of the said dark force. The atmosphere in the said area was so dense that even Carlota herself could also feel it. After they find the right spot, Carlota uses her superwoman strength to break the walls down. There it revealed a sea of undead waiting to break free. Now it will just be a matter of time before they all get destroyed. The amount of the undead takes aback the party. Now the question is, what will they do now? It seems like the corpses drifted by the flow of the water and then turned into the undead right away. There's only one thing that describes this whole situation, and it's the fact that the prince's faction sure is ruthless. Nell then starts looking for the magic circle, which she finds right away. As they take a closer look, it seems like the prince's faction has used a hexagram magic circle, which means that they have to pull at least 2 of the stakes, since one needs to destroy 2 triangles made by using 6 stakes. However, it seems like Nell is having doubts about themselves as she starts to question if they can really pull it off in the midst of those undead. Yuki, who is very confident, then volunteers and states that he will take care of the undead and will leave the stakes to the others to take care of. With that said, Yuki then uses a water slide to annihilate the whole undead population. This made Carlota amazed at Yuki very much. As Yuki fights off the zombies, the others charge in to take care of the stakes. After a while, they are able to defeat the whole horde of zombies while finishing getting all the necessary stakes out. Yuki seems very amazed at how Nell and Carlota work hand in hand. However, it seems like some of the undead are still moving. It turns out that those are the ones that have been undead for so long that they have already turned into monsters. But now that the team has taken care of the cause of the problem, the undead inside the capital will soon be taken care of. Now they can finally focus on their main mission, which is to rescue the king and the princess. Nell then says her thanks to Yuki, who has done a lot for them. Carlota also states her sorry that the team can't properly show their gratitude now, but the least they can do now is give Yuki a nice place to stay. On the other hand, on the other side of the capital, after the enemies get the signal that the magic circle has been broken, thinking that the corpse they have planted has finished its purpose, now all they need to do is put up the final act. Going back to Yuki and the others, as they reach the outside world once again, Yuki tries to tease some kids as he acts as the demon lord. Well, he is technically the demon lord after all. As Yuki notices that the people are getting hungry due to the lack of food supply brought about by the war, which causes merchants not to be able to enter the capital, Yuki has decided to take everything under his control. After hunting some monster meat, Yuki also decided to make his own homemade spices, which made the stew even more delicious. The people seem to be a bit unfamiliar with the whole thing, as this is the only time they are able to experience such a festive event in their life. Even the citizens roaming around the capital, who have been able to smell the appetizing smell of Yuki's stew, have also decided to join the whole party. However, their happy times are easily interrupted when a group of soldiers from the castle halts the whole festivity. They state that there have been reports of the edict that says the food they are serving now is under the country's administration. The soldiers warn everyone, saying they will be labeled as rebels if they don't follow orders. It seems like there is another thing that is definitely far more troublesome than the undead has finally entered the scene. The soldiers keep on saying that Yuki and the others are eating lavishly, despite doing nothing while they are fighting for the country. The soldiers keep on calling them as rebels who have hidden the food from the country. Hearing the word rebel coming out of the soldiers makes Carlota furious. It seems like the soldier went big with his words. Before things get out of control, Carlota tells the soldier that these are the monsters that she has hunted herself, so there should not be any problems with what she does with them, she reasons. But it seems like the administration has already thought of it. The soldier then states that they are a food administration edict that the capital has implemented, and it is the duty of the citizens to follow it. Carlota then states that she has never heard of a case where the food collected by the army is being distributed to the civilians though. However, it seems like the soldiers have already gotten so full of themselves that they are starting to talk about honor, which they state Carlota and the others don't have. Without even hearing what the people are trying to say, the soldiers plan to collect all the remaining food. However, Carlota wouldn't get intimidated by such people. She even told them how they let the people eat their bodies. Carlota does believe that the soldiers have a more appropriate job than being a knight with a body like theirs. On the other hand, at the back, Yuki keeps on silently listening to everyone. He somehow couldn't believe that these Yankees were with the army. In the first place, why would Carlota let them off even though she can easily beat them? However, as Yuki tries to analyze the whole situation even more, he is shocked when he notices that there is someone observing them. So these guys are actually trying to rile them up by sending bad manner soldiers to the church. They want the church to raise its hands first, to declare defeat properly. While the heated conversation continues, a little girl bumps into one of the soldiers. Before he can even land his sword at the poor girl, Yuki jumps right in to help her. While the heat still is going, Yuki tells Nell that he will be going somewhere, as he will leave the place to them. Nell then asks him where he is going. He then states that he'll go after the guy who has been observing them, since it will be bad if he reports the incident. Seeing how brave Yuki is, Carlota can't seem to deny the fact that he sure is skilled in many ways. That said, Carlota then reveals to Nell that she already knows Yuki is lying when he says he is Nell's follower. This statement makes Nell freeze, as she never realized that Carlota had realized it all this time. Nell then immediately states that Yuki is someone they can trust, and Carlota does believe that, and she is somehow thankful that Nell has grown into a strong woman now. This somehow pushed Carlota to start the operation finally. That said, they will now finally start the rescue mission to the castle. Meanwhile, back at the house, it seems like the girls are having quite a good time trying to help Luffy find out how she can get closer to Yuki. First, Iduna tells her that she should just show her wings, since it really makes Yuki so excited. Sounding so weird, they then moved on to ask Shi. She then gives a very broad and safe advice, and that is to stay together and be happy, since Yuki is seen as the happiest when they are all together. However, such a thing wouldn't help Luffy at all, so they move to Layla to ask for advice. Layla then states the most efficient and quite realistic advice, and that is for Luffy to simply state how she feels. At first, Luffy seemed a bit hesitant, but when Layla elaborated that it might be effective, her facial expression somehow changed for the better. Other than that, Layla has also stated that a little bit of skinship wouldn't be dangerous, as it will literally help her get closer to Yuki. This way she can lure him using her seductiveness. With that said, will the Supreme Dragon ever withstand Layla's training? It will only be a matter of time before we know it. On the other hand, Carlota is seen talking with her people. After introducing who she is, she tells everyone that right now, they have just witnessed the current condition of the capital. Right now, the king is being held captive by the true rebels known as the Prince's faction. That's why Carlota has emphasized that if they were to seize political power, the country's future wouldn't be that bright at all. That's why the church will now go forth to battle to return the capital to its rightful state. She then asks those who are brave enough to join their army. Since all the citizens are now hyped up by what they have witnessed, without hesitation, everyone agrees to join the battle with the prince. Meanwhile, Yuki is seen still pursuing the suspect as he runs across the capital. Noticing that the enemy is going to the royal castle, Yuki has even thought of leaving him alone and just better act alone to save the king and have a talk with him. Even though it was just a small fight, there were so many witnesses. That's why Yuki believes that the church won't just wait until night falls. As the enemy entered the door, Yuki then followed him inside. As soon as he enters, he immediately wonders which way leads to the underground dungeon where the king is being kept. Meanwhile, the church's army has now successfully taken over control of the west gate. They've also taken over the barracks and even were able to apprehend the soldiers. They are about 70% of the way securing the main gate, and only 5 of the soldiers died, and about 6% of the soldiers left can't move at the moment, but there won't be any problem with carrying out the plan. As expected, they can't do anything about the difference in their numbers, but thanks to the civilians rising up, the casualties are much lower than expected. Now, after a stressful fight, they let the injured rest in the back lane, since they still have much to do. Carlota then asks if the enemies made any strange movements. One of her soldiers then informs her that the only thing they can think of is that they have a few foreign magicians in their army. It seems like these magicians are probably newcomers. Seems like the soldiers are not informed about it and are frozen in fear when they see the magicians controlling the undead. With that said, this just confirms that the undead problem in the capital was really the prince's doing. Carlota then thought that if they had not destroyed the magic circle yesterday night, the casualties they have now could have been far worse. That's why she thought that she has to pay her debt to that masked guy, aka Yuki. With that said, she then called Nell as they were now going to the next objective. Nell immediately follows orders as they don't have that much time at all. On the other hand, Yuki is still struggling to find his way around the castle. Even though he had the full map of the palace, he can find the entrance to the underground dungeon at all. And if they didn't know the existence of the hidden passage, it wouldn't be recorded on the map anyway. Looks like there's some magic to stop infiltrators, and the castle magicians have already thought about it. This made Yuki wonder if one of the soldiers he saw had anything to prove that he is one of the residents there. As he checks the man, he is able to see a card. The card is called the Magic Authentication Tool. It is said that the owner of this magic tool will be unaffected by entry domination magic in a specific place. While Yuki is in the midst of this search and rescue operation, a palace maid then suddenly comes out from one of the rooms. As she is about to scream, Yuki immediately stops her by doing so. He then asks her not to scream and assures her that he won't harm her at all. He then states that he is just searching for the king and the soldier laying on the ground isn't dead. Hearing Yuki's true motives, the maid gasps in shock. It seems like the maid has now calmed down as she nods yes that she will not scream at all. After releasing a loud sign, the maid then asks if Yuki is really planning to save the king and the princess. As Yuki states yes, the maid seems to be so worried about the royalties as she herself even begs Yuki to save both the royals no matter what. She then offers to guide him to the entrance of the underground dungeon. With that said, the maid really did what she promised to do. As a result, Yuki then states that she should leave the palace immediately and bring all of her friends as she gets out, as things are about to get chaotic from now on. Sooner or later, this place will become a battlefield. With that said, Yuki then enters the said entrance, and as he walks down the stairs to the dungeon, he then thought that the king was a useless king, but seeing how the maid reacts, it seems like he has some charisma and kindness after all. However, if he were the prince's faction, he would kill the king right away. That's why this made Yuki think, are they keeping the king alive to have a public execution? Or is it simply because he has some empathy as the king's son? For now, Yuki knows he wouldn't have the answer. As he finally reaches the end of the tunnel, he's in shock as he witnesses a gruesome scene of a grown-up man beating the hell out of a poor girl. Before he can even land another hit on the girl, Yuki immediately stabs his knife to the man's back, stating that the man is creeping him out so much. This shows that the demon lord will do anything that he can to protect everyone's smiles. That said, it seems like the princess did accept all the punches and kicks for the sake of the kingdom. She wants to sacrifice and help her father in any way she can, as she is, after all, the princess of the kingdom. That's why even though it really hurts, she keeps telling herself that it is okay and that she will be okay as long as she perseveres. Even though it is already painful, she keeps telling herself that she just needs to think positively, as help will surely come to them. That's why the moment that Yuki entered the scene, it seemed like the princess's pain immediately vanished away. Yuki then assures her that everything is alright now, and that she will be good in no time. Seeing that his daughter is now saved, the king asks Yuki for his identity. Yuki, being the guy he is, shows off his demon wings to the king. Seeing that he is a demon, the king immediately gets worried for his daughter's safety. As a result, he then asks Yuki to let go of his daughter immediately. Yuki then states that that's so harsh for the king to say, even though he came this far by himself just to have a chat with him. He then states that the king is a useless man, as he can't even educate his son properly, so he must forget about protecting his daughter. Yuki then states his frustration as he is having some trouble since the king's idiotic son is meddling with his garden, the haunted forest. That's why he also states that he'll help the king in exchange for them not ever touching his garden again. Hearing this made the king shocked. He then asked if Yuki was the demon lord of the haunted forest, to which Yuki answered silently. The king then agrees with the fact that he is indeed a foolish king. After all, he is just an old geezer that overlooks his son's change of heart, thinking it's just a simple mistake. He then states that does Yuki really think that he can do anything at this point? Yuki then states that if he chooses to stay as the foolish king, he guesses the ones who will pay him back are the citizens of the kingdom, since no matter by whose order they had come, Yuki will kill everyone who trespasses into his territory. Also, aren't there still some people who have faith in the king? Yuki then informs the king that even the church is moving out to save him. Even so, does he still prefer to stay inside the cage, shivering on his own? Somehow, this made the king realize that as the parent of the prince, he must accept the responsibility for what their child has done. With that said, Yuki then breaks open the cage for the king to pass through. He also states that the king should not just go on and change his mind in the future. He then states that if he happens to kill the king or the people around the king, the one who will be sad the most is the princess after all. This made the king question Yuki if he wouldn't blackmail him, saying he would kill the princess if the king didn't listen to him. However, it seems like Yuki wasn't able to hear the question, and the king didn't say it again. With that said, the king just says his thanks to Yuki for saving his daughter from the hands of the evil ones. As they finally get back up to the palace grounds, Yuki is excited about the fight. He then encountered a group of soldiers roaming around. However, what the soldiers did made Yuki somehow confused. Even though he didn't land a hit, the soldiers acted so badly pretending to get blown away or injured just to retreat. This made Yuki somehow laugh, thinking that these soldiers were literal cowards. Even the princess had more guts than them. However, there are some soldiers who are actually fearless as well. The moment that they saw the king, they immediately rushed in their direction as they planned to captivate the king once more. Before they can even do so, Yuki uses his super strength and blows the said soldier away. Now that the captain has been beaten, the other soldiers have no choice but to retreat. On the other hand, first of all, Yuki needs to know Prince's whereabouts, and it seems like the Prince faction soldiers are fewer than he thought. Then one of the palace soldiers, who referred to himself as a prisoner of war, decided to come to serve Yuki. He states that the prince must be staying at his office or the throne room while his soldiers are all going to take care of the commotion outside the palace. Hearing that there was a commotion outside, Yuki immediately thought that it might be the church. As expected, they sped up the plan, Yuki thought. The soldier then tells Yuki to leave it to them to take care of the prince's soldiers, who might still be left inside the castle. They will also escort the king somewhere safe. That's why Yuki doesn't need to overexert himself. That said, if all goes according to plan, Help from the church will come shortly. Yuki then states that once the church arrives, the king and the princess must evacuate immediately. The king, who has a lot of thoughts right now, asks Yuki what about his son. Yuki immediately states that the prince will be dead by his own hands. The king then states that he fully understands, but the only request he asks is for Yuki to take him when that time comes. He promises not to hinder Yuki at all. Yuki then released a big sigh. On the other hand, Nell and Carlota, together with the others, have finally arrived. They are so happy seeing that the king is now safe. Seeing that Yuki is with him even made them shocked. Yuki then asks the king not to blabber things about him being the demon lord, as he has not yet revealed his true identity to the church people. Carlota then tells the king that he should evacuate with the soldiers immediately. However, he decided to just hand over his daughter, as he plans to really go with Yuki. Carlota tried to explain to the king that the situation had gotten worse, and the palace was now dangerous. It is now a battlefield, and in cases that he was to get caught up in it, the kingdom would lose its future. Looking down State says sorry for troubling everyone, but do you want to see it through with his own eyes? Carlota then asks if there's no way that the king would ever change his mind. However, it seems like he won't at all. On the other hand, using his skill, Yuki is able to detect that there is a danger coming their way, since as the skill level goes up, the area and position of the danger detection will increase. As Yuki turns his head, a man then attacks him from behind. The man is quite surprised that Yuki is able to block his attack. Yuki then states he doesn't have a hobby of being stabbed from behind. The man then states the reason why he decided to take the stupid mission was since he heard he could fight with the church's strong female knight and hero, but it seems like he is quite lucky that he is able to go against both in one fight. Nell, who is always worried for Yuki, asks if he is okay. Yuki then assures her that he is fine and that she should take care of things on her end quickly and leave the fight with this junkie with him. He even asks Carlota not to help in the fight at all since she will just get in his way. It seems like some troublesome guy has locked onto him. That said, Carlota tells her soldiers to take care of the princess and take her to a safe place. As per everyone else, they will have to come with her to capture the prince. But that said, the soldiers then assure that they will make sure to protect the king with all their might. That said, Carlota then leaves the place for Yuki to take care of, so the only thing she asks for is for him not to die since she still has a lot of things to ask him. They all then left, leaving Yuki with the junkie guy. He then asks the guy if it is okay for him just to let the king go away like that. The guy then states that his only job is to take care of the strong opponents, and the strongest from the church is Yuki after all. It seems like the guy is so happy and states that he is so lucky to think that he can fight a strong guy like Yuki. This made Yuki somehow uncomfortable and confused. On the other hand, it seems like Nell couldn't help herself but get worried for Yuki, since the guy that Yuki is up against is an adamantite class adventurer after all. Even Carlota wasn't expecting it since the guild was staying neutral. The guy's alias is known to be a war freak. Here's a battle junkie to the point that no one won't see a battlefield without him. Even though skill-wise he should be an orichalcum class adventurer, because of his bad personality, the guild is having issues with him. That's why Carlota thought that if they left some soldiers, the soldiers would just get in the way of Yuki. That's why the only thing they could do now is to believe in his skills. Going back to Yuki and the guy, it seems like the guy is quite amazed at how powerful Yuki is. Seeing his response speed is so wonderful. On the other hand, Yuki has also checked the guy's stats, and it seems like he is, after all, a very strong man with so many unique skills and titles. Yuki couldn't deny the fact that this junkie guy was indeed strong. His stats are on par with Yuki, and his skill level is even higher than Yuki's. This made Yuki think that he didn't come to the palace to have a battle to the death. He just hunts monsters for DP, and he wants to fluff Rhea's fur instead of having such a dangerous battle. The man then continues to hit Yuki in every direction, stating that he is burning with so much passion. Now that Yuki has grown so cold, and as every hit gets hurtful in every direction, Yuki tries to hit the guy as well. He then uses his magic powers to attack the guy, hoping he'll drown. If this battle drags on, it will be unfavorable for Yuki since he has much lower battle experience and skills. That's why he decided to defeat the guy swiftly using the only thing that he's far better than him at, and that is magic. However, as he tries to attack the guy in every direction, it seems like the guy is just so powerful that he even gets a chance to hit Yuki in his arms. As the sword pierces through Yuki's flesh, the amazement and pride on the man's face are indescribable. However, little did he know that Yuki had also thought of a plan as well. It seems like as he pierced the sword through Yuki's arms, Yuki also found an opening where he could also attack the guy by piercing his sword through his chest. The guy didn't notice it at first, but as the tingling feeling of pain started to rush in, as well as the pool of blood flowing, the guy suddenly got weak as he found himself kneeling on the ground. Seeing that his enemy finally got defeated made Yuki relieved as he will now not worry about not ever returning home. Just thinking of Leffy somehow made Yuki so happy and sentimental. Inside his head, he thought that even though Leffy is about 1,000 years too early, to challenge a demon lord by herself is something admirable. On the other hand, back at the demon lord's lair, the girls are seen looking for Leffy, who seems to have taken a walk but hasn't come back yet. She is then seen feeling the breeze of the air through her skin as she sits at the end of a cliff, spacing out a lot lately. The girls then thought that maybe Leffy has her own problems as well, but they believe she will be back when she gets hungry. It seems like Leffy has been so lonely while Yuki is away. This just shows that a wavering heart brings out new questions. After the seemingly intense fight with the bulky guy, Yuki is somehow thankful that he has a high potion with him, or else things would have been a lot worse. Not only the arms, but a few of his finger bones are also broken. Other than the high potion, Yuki also thanks Layla for tweaking the Crimson Blaze, making its magic circuit appropriately activated. By pouring magic power into it, the blade will be covered in a blaze that will burn the target that the blade has sliced. The blaze created is adjustable with the amount of magic power used. Seeing how he finally defeated the strong guy, Yuki reminisces how he just barely won the said fight with the difference in the average status of their races. But if someone thinks about it, Nell only has half a level of him, but she already has a similar status. So Yuki guesses a hero's growth is really that amazing. Now that his fight is over, Yuki decides to join the others. He then fled to check where the others were. Just within seconds, he immediately found them cornering the prince. Carlota is seen stating to the prince that he is under suspicion of rebelling against the kingdom. That's why he is asked to follow the authorities quietly. However, it seems like the prince wouldn't listen at all. He even orders his men to arrest Carlota and the others, as he refers to them as rebels who will rot the kingdom. With that said, another fight has begun. During the fight, Nell notices something is off. The prince's eyes look weird and unsettling. However, she has no choice but to focus on fighting, so she first shakes her head to wake herself back up to reality. Inside her head, if they keep up the pace, it's only a matter of time before their victory. Other than that, Nell then thought of Yuki. Although Yuki said that he didn't need any help, but Nell couldn't help herself to worry so much about him, considering Yuki's enemy is an adamantite class. If the battle prolongs, Yuki will be at a disadvantage. That's why Nell is now pumped up to take care of this place as quickly as possible so that she can help Yuki. Then within a few seconds, Yuki enters the scene, trying to slice off one of the enemies. This made Nell shocked for a bit. Yuki then notices the prince. As everyone turns their attention to him, we can clearly see how unusual his eyes are. Although Carlota tries to tell everyone that no matter what happens, they must still protect the prince, one of the men then stabs the prince with his sword. At that moment, Yuki finally realizes that the prince is already dead all this time, and it seems like the man in the robe is the culprit behind it. However, before Yuki can even catch him, the man escapes. Nell, who has no idea what's going on, then asks Yuki for confirmation. Yuki then informs her that the man in the robe is probably the mastermind, and it seems like he was also the one controlling the prince's dead body. The prince's status was camouflaged because of the ring he was wearing. When one uses the ring of falsehood, it can show false information to another party who wants to inspect their status. And as Yuki checks on it, the magic circulating around the prince is similar to that of a hooded man's. That's why he plans to go fly and pursue him. So Yuki leaves everything to Nell. He wants her to take everyone's attention for a moment. However, before he can finish his sentence, a magic portal opens, releasing a huge undead monster. At this point, things are getting worse than they already are. It is a giant corpse that is nearing. The question is, what will the group do now? Yuki is somehow amazed by the fact that the enemy has left him quite the perfect example of a hindrance. However, he couldn't possibly leave the group with such a huge monster creating so much havoc. As a result, instead of immediately going off and chasing the culprit, Yuki decides to fight the monster first. Yuki slices one of the monster's arms. Although the monster might be walking slowly because of its giant body, but its punch is sure fast. However, things are about to get worse as it seems like the monster has the ability to reform his injuries. With that said, Yuki is somehow amazed but at the same time grossed by the regeneration skill of the said monsters. Seeing that Yuki is struggling for a bit, Nell jumps in to try to help Yuki in any way she can. She then chants her undead spell in hopes that it will work like heaven, the same way it did with the other zombies. The soul who has diverged from the law of nature, return to the world you belong to, Nell chants. However, it has no effect at all. So Nell wonders what they should do now. Yuki, who is quite smart at thinking rationally, thought that the monster was, after all, still an undead. Yuki wondered if Nell could use stronger holy magic instead. Nell then states that she can, however it takes time to chant. So while Nell is focusing on chanting her holy magic, Yuki has decided to fight the monster to divert its attention to him. The others have also offered to help Yuki. Now that everyone is doing their best to fight the monster with all their might, Nell focuses on her holy magic. However, despite how much they try, it looks like its regeneration speed could be faster. In the first place, Yuki is not the type who unleashes an endless combo attack. To make it worse, his Crimson Blaze is also not working now. On the other hand, the soldiers can't really do anything to help either. When things are about to get worse, Nell has finally perfected her holy magic. She then tells everyone to move away as she casts her magic. As she releases it, the monster flies to the end of the room. It looks like Nell is shooting some cannon or something. Carlota, on the other hand, cheers her to pump her up. However, it seems like it didn't affect the monster at all. When Yuki tries to slice it, he is easily swayed away. Yuki then reasons that he might have let his guard down a little there. As he wobbles in embarrassment, Nell is speechless at what she is witnessing. She then tells her sorry, considering her attack didn't help much since the monster is still regenerating. However, Yuki thinks otherwise, since if they take a closer look at it, it seems like Nell's holy magic really did affect the monster in some way. After it takes a hit from her magic, its regeneration speed is clearly reduced, so Yuki wonders if Nell can go for another round so that they can finally win the fight. Nell then stated yes, but she needed a bit more time. Yuki then hands her a drink, which will help her produce holy magic faster. But before anything else, Yuki started a strategy meeting with everyone. His plan at first is to wait for Nell to shoot her holy magic, and then when it has already hit the monster, they will wait for the monster's regeneration speed reduction to reach its peak. After that, Yuki plans to slash it into parts himself. After it is cut to pieces, Carlota orders the soldiers to take it and bring them further away from each other. This way the monster wouldn't be able to regenerate that easily. Carlota then states that hearing Yuki saying it casually sounds like a stupid strategy, but she guessed there's no other way. Yuki then reasons that since the caster is not there with them, he believes there would be a range limit to its regeneration ability. It's not like it can grow severed limbs every time it's cut. That said, Carlota and Yuki will now do as they have planned. Yuki also takes it into his own hands, the soldiers who are weak and scared even to lift their swords. He tells them not to just dawdle around. If they do, they can go home and curl up on their bed. Soldiers who don't have any will to fight are just plain hindrances. While Yuki is telling his sermon, Carlota informs him that the monster is already reacting to Nell's chant. Guess it really hated the holy magic that much. The monster looks so angry and annoyed at the same time. As he rushes toward Nell, who is preparing her holy magic, Yuki and Carlota make sure that he must not reach Nell at all. Seeing that Carlota is fighting, her men follow her to the fight as well. On the other hand, the palace knights also didn't want the holy knight to hog up all the glory. As a result, they finally decided to swallow their pride and stand up for the country's future. As everyone tries to fight the monster, Nell is finally finished chanting his holy magic. As she casts it towards the monster, Yuki then slices the monster vertically, making it into two. However, Yuki suddenly gets shocked when the monster grips him tightly. He panicked for a bit, but after a while, the monster eventually released him. Although he was shaking in fear, Yuki tried to look strong, cursing the monster and telling the monster not to even think he could win a strength battle against the one and only Yuki. Carlota then asks Yuki if he needs any help since it really seems like it. Yuki then quickly states he doesn't need any help at all, so Carlota can take care of the other half if possible. With that said, Yuki then drags the monster's other half as far as he can from its other half. When he finally is close to the outside, Yuki slices it into parts and throws the pieces away. Nell then asks him what he will do if the parts start regenerating in random places. Yuki then states that if it really has that high tenacity, he guesses he has to throw in the towel, but it seems like everything is going to be okay. With that said, they have finally achieved their victory. While the Demon Lord is having a hard fight, people in the castle are having fun dining. Soon after that, the princess facts on soldier surrender. Also, inside princess supporters, there are quite a number of mayors in rural areas, so it might take some time to restructure the capital's political condition. By the way, most of the open seats made by this incident are being filled by the church. And as for the king, he decided to reclaim his throne until the chaos in the country had gone down. Somehow the king is devastated at the fact that his son, who was already dead, was being controlled by a demon. Somehow regretted the resentment he gave to his son, not knowing that his son was being controlled. Well, as for Yuki, he came here thinking he'll kill the dumb prince and end his trouble. But instead, he found out that the one behind this incident is a demon. His true identity is safe for now because of the mask and disguise skill. But if the prince invaded the haunted forest because of the demon, then it would be really troublesome. Could the demon be trying to take advantage of Luffy to destroy the country? While Yuki is contemplating everything, the princess he saved from the dungeon says hi to him. With a huge sunshine smile on her face, the princess tells Yuki to call her Errol. Together with her family, they say their kind thanks to Yuki for helping them. Errol, who has been calling Yuki a hero non-stop, somehow makes Yuki feel bad. So instead of lying to a child, Yuki tells Errol that she has been wrong all this time, since he is not a hero. So he tries to scare Errol by showing his demon wings and stating that he is a really bad demon lord. However, instead of getting frightened, Errol looks so amazed by Yuki's cool wings, just like the way Luffy looks at his wings. With much calmness on her face, Errol states that he has heard demon lords usually kidnap the princess, and instead of running away, the princess even asks Yuki to kidnap her. Awkwardly, Yuki states yes, if he feels like it. Hearing this made the princess excited, stating that she would be waiting for Yuki. The king then tells his daughter to leave the room as he wants to speak with Yuki alone. As soon as Errol exits the room, Yuki tells the king to teach his daughter to be cautious. The king then states his sorry, but he thinks it's because Errol believes Yuki won't hurt her. That said, it just shows how Errol is a really strong child. The king then again thanks Yuki for everything he did. So as a token of appreciation, the king asks Yuki if he wants something, and the king tries his best to grant anything he wants within his power. Hearing this shocks Yuki. Although it might be a bit embarrassing, since he did work hard this time, he won't hold back at all. So Yuki states everything he wants to the king. One is to write a written pact that stated the haunted forest is an inviolable area. Secondly, Yuki asks for an identity card that can be used freely around the country. With this document, the king is approving that the haunted forest is the Demon Lord area and no aggression is allowed. With that said, he can now finally take Luffy and the others to go sightseeing as well. But before that, the king has told Yuki that he has also prepared a banquet as a small token of gratitude. Although Yuki wanted to attend, he stated that he had left his companion outside the capital, and he badly wanted to go home already. The king then states that if Yuki is worried about his companions, the palace is open to welcoming them as well. That said, Yuki then lets Riri enter the palace, just like the king said. Looking at how majestic Riri is, the king is shocked, while Errol is so amazed. The king then states that if Yuki registers Riri as his familiar, he can bring him around the capital. The king also informs him that he has only invited a limited number of people for the banquet, so Yuki can enjoy it to his heart's content. As the night falls, Nell, Carlota, and the others have also attended the said banquet, and everyone is amazed by how beautiful looking it is. Errol then rushes towards Nell, trying to escort her to her seat. While they are walking, Nell somehow asks Yuki if he is sure that it is okay for him to tell his identity to Errol, who has nearly revealed his true identity to many. Yuki then reasons that she is just a child after all, so no one would take it seriously if she ever did tell someone. As they reach the table, Nell is so surprised by how much food they have. It looks like her first time having such an extravagant dinner. Errol, who is so proud, tells everyone that their prideful royal chef makes this food. The king then states his thanks once again for all their work on this event. Although it might be lacking, the king is hoping that everyone will enjoy themselves. They all then cheer in happiness. 2 hours later, it seems like everyone is now drunk. Nell almost kisses Yuki out of drunkenness, but thankfully, Yuki is able to avoid it. Even Errol looks drunk as well, so before things get a bit out of control, one of the palace's servants then lifts her up, informing Yuki that he will carry her to her room. Then Yuki turns his head, seeing that the king has even drunk himself. Well, he went through a lot after all, so Yuki guessed he was just so tired. As for Carlota, it seems like she is drooling over eating Riri when she gets back home. As a result, Yuki ended up taking Riri and himself out of that insane situation. The whole banquet was utter chaos, not in a bad way, but Yuki can't deny the fact that it was definitely quite fun. With that said, it's now time for Yuki to go back home. No matter how fun it is, nothing beats home after all. Before Yuki leaves for good, he then hands a gift to Nell. It's a dagger made by Yuki, which was named Gekka. It is a dagger with a white blade. Later, it can create a light that can cut through the dark night. Although the specs aren't really that good enough, Nell can keep it as a spare weapon or use it for dismantling. Nell then states she is so happy and thankful for Yuki's gift. She promises to take care of it no matter what. That said, after a bit of a long journey, Yuki has finally reached his own castle in the haunted forest. Huge sunshine smiles welcome him, and we can clearly see in his eyes that he himself is glad that he is back. He then tells the girls that he has souvenirs for them that he even brought from the capital's market. He then thanks Layla and Lewin for the good work they have done while he was away. The two are also happy that he is back home safely. Yuki is so excited to tell the girls about all the experiences he is able to go through during his time in the capital. It seems like everyone is so excited to hear everything that Yuki is about to tell. However, there is only one girl who doesn't seem to be. Luffy is seen all speechless in one corner. However, as Yuki approaches her, she stutters and flusters all of a sudden. Unconsciously, Luffy then states that she has been lonely while Yuki has been away. This made Yuki shocked, as he never imagined that he would hear such words coming out of Luffy's mouth. He then asks her if she has eaten something bad. Yuki somehow can't believe what he has heard, so he keeps asking Luffy some random questions. However, it seems like Luffy has already decided to tell what she feels truthfully to Yuki. She explains that she has come to realize that she can't bear not having Yuki around her. This even made Yuki shocked and speechless. On the other hand, the girls are happy that Luffy has finally expressed what's really inside her heart. Luffy's statement somehow made Yuki very much flustered. Although he feels like it's not like Luffy at all, he can't deny the fact that she looks so cute, just like a hamster. As Yuki stays still, Luffy notices something strange. As she smells Yuki, she says she can smell the scent of girls other than the hero from him. Yuki tries to explain that she has been playing with some kids, but it seems like Luffy is just jealous. That said, she then asks Yuki to come to eat with her, and just like that, it seems like they are now all good. A few days later, Yuki noticed that Luffy had been acting strange lately. She seemed so close to Yuki all the time. So Yuki has taken it into his hands and asked Liu about it since he is quite sure that she knows something about it. Liu's heart is throbbing with fear as the Demon Lord Yuki closes in. As Yuki asks her if she has any idea about why Luffy has been acting strange lately, Liu's eyes start to tear up as she gets speechless, not knowing what to tell the Demon Lord. She tried to mask her fear with a big smile, trying to assure Yuki that she didn't think there was anything strange with Luffy. However, Yuki doesn't think so. Up till now, Luffy would spend most of the day taking a nap. Other than that, she would only talk about food and games when she was awake. She was the embodiment of a NEET itself. Yet lately, she has been acting like a puppy that clings to Yuki all day long, and there's no way Liu doesn't know or even notice that Luffy has been acting so strange lately. Liu then states that all she can say is that Luffy is undeniably cute lately, which Yuki himself cannot deny. However, before they drift away from the subject, Yuki tries to ask Liu once again. Liu then asks why Yuki only asks her. Why didn't he try to ask Layla about it? Yuki then reasons that he can't go against Layla. Liu then went on to say that Yuki must treat her equally and respectfully just like Layla. However, Yuki then immediately turns the tables as he expresses just a useless maid like Liu can't demand respect considering she doesn't even do any housework. Liu then tells him that it's so cruel for him to say such words. However, Yuki knows Liu is quite aware of what she is doing, so he doesn't really think much about hurting her feelings a little at all. Liu then reasons that she is putting effort into it, so Yuki should treat her kindly. However, isn't it normal for a demon lord to be oppressive? Yuki then tries to make her even more worse by stating that it wasn't for him. She wouldn't even have the chance to even meet Rear, which is the main reason she stayed after all. Now that she is all cornered, Liu has no choice but to tell Yuki about what really has been happening with Luffy. She asks Yuki not to tell anyone that he heard it from her. She doesn't want to turn into ash anytime soon at all. Yuki immediately said yes, and that's why Liu went on to say what really happened. She explains that Luffy was pondering about something during the time that Yuki was away. Hearing this somehow made Yuki shocked, as he never thought Luffy, the mighty dragon, could ever ponder about something. Liu then explains that since Luffy has been living for a long time herself, she doesn't know how to take a proper distance in a relationship with others. That's why she has been feeling a little anxious lately, since she has always been acting passively while receiving others' courtesy. That's why, right now, she is in the middle of trial and error on how to communicate with others. Learning about this somehow made Yuki feel a bit guilty. That's why, to compensate for his actions, he asked Luffy to have a drink with him. That night, Layla and Leo are also seen talking. Leo somehow gave Layla a hint that she feels like she did a really great job that day. However, Layla seems a bit hesitant to believe Leo for her words. Nonetheless, Leo is really happy that she somehow helped Luffy communicate even better with the one she always yearns for. After all, Luffy wasn't pondering about how to communicate with others, but she was pondering about how to communicate with a certain person. That said, now that Yuki has finally made a move to get closer to Luffy, things are about to get better from here on forward. That said, going back to Luffy and Yuki, although dragons are a race that is known to be fond of liquors, it seems like Luffy is more of a sweet tooth type of gal. As a result, she hasn't been drinking for a while. As Yuki pours her a glass, she states how good the scent of the wine is. Although the wine should be easy to drink, Yuki still tells Luffy to drink a bit more carefully, considering she might still get drunk in the end. Luffy then assures him that she is the strongest dragon out there, so Yuki doesn't have to worry about it that much. Luffy then shares that she never thought Yuki had a taste in liquor. That said, knowing that Yuki wouldn't ever try to lose to a supreme dragon that's blinded by her own power, the two ended up having a drinking fight. As they finished the liquor all the way to its last drop, it seems like it is already clear who has won. It turns out Yuki has a lot more stamina in liquor than Luffy, so Luffy ended up getting wasted in the end. However, even though she is already at her peak, she still wouldn't surrender, and even says to Yuki that all she needs is a little break. During their mini break, Yuki opens up with Luffy about her sudden change of behavior. Yuki tries to tell her that she doesn't need to change anything. She's just perfect the way she was before. Yuki even stated that he loves the funny side of Luffy. Even though she is stubborn and grumpy sometimes, she's still the best person anyone would want to be. So, she doesn't need to change anything about herself just to be accepted by other people. Luffy then states that it's not like she didn't want to change. In fact, she is somehow at ease whenever she gets closer to Yuki all the time. The skinship that they share from time to time somehow makes her feel warm and comfy, and that is the feeling she has always been wanting for. Hearing this somehow made Yuki flustered. After Luffy realizes what she just said, she tries to cover up her embarrassment by drinking another bottle of liquor, and we all know what happened next. The two ended up getting wasted. The next morning, Layla and Leo are so happy to see Yuki and Luffy being the closest they have ever been, lying on the floor, sleeping. Once Leo woke the two up, Yuki and Luffy couldn't say anything as they saw their bodies so close to each other. In the end, they move apart, all flustered by what just happened. After that intense moment, Yuki has now come back to work. He starts to contemplate how even a human is really strong when they are at a hero class level. If he were to meet a demon or demi-human at that level, he might die next time. As a result, he must improve his leveling no matter what. But before that, he has to strengthen the dungeon first. He starts off by adding some landmines and traps. He has also installed a system to gather all of the nearby monsters in case there is an intruder coming. He even added some poisonous plants as well. Aside from that, since his dungeon lacks strong monsters, he also found the time to add around 4 mid-boss leveled monsters to finish off his dungeon leveling plan. However, it doesn't stop there. He has also added a grand tortoise, which is a trap that will only activate when there is an intruder. Now that his dungeon leveling is all done, he and Rear then went to do some hunting. During their hunting session, Yuki is able to test his sword, Zion's magic circuit. However, the problem is that Yuki has no stronger enemies to fight with. Then, a lion-like monster appears out of nowhere. It's called the Manticore, a ferocious beast who is at level 96. Seeing how far the monster's level is from him somehow made Yuki worried. On the other hand, back in the capital, the king is having a meeting with one of his servants. It seems like they have finally finished analyzing the artifact that the demon wore, and the creator is the Logard Empire. The history between humans and demons originates from way back, and Logard is one of the countries that battled endlessly with the demons. But they can't deny the possibility of human and demon countries working together in secrecy. Logard could be considered a rival country to the Alicia Kingdom, and the demon should see the country of Alicia, which has been at odds against them for a long time, as a hindrance. So they would both gain benefits with the kingdom of Alicia losing power. As a result, the king will do anything to protect his citizens, even if he has to ask Yuki to help him. Although he knows that Yuki, the demon lord, wouldn't do such a thing, but he surely knows that Yuki is willing to protect the princess at least. In the end, the king wants to keep Yuki as his good neighbor. Back in the haunted forest, Yuki is seen fighting the Manticore with a sword. As he finally finishes the fight, he is somehow amazed by how his sword changes so much. His sword can even do telepathy. To make good of his time, Yuki has decided to make his sword a handmade scabbard. Although Zion is a bit picky, in the end, the blazing sword ends up choosing the cute one. It is then revealed that when Zion gained his senses, the first ones that came to him were grief and wrath, anger and sorrow, fear and screams. In short, it was just a swirl of negative emotions filling up his consciousness. He tells himself that the one who swings him will scream in happiness with anger, sorrow, and fear, and thus new grief and wrath were born anew, unless he himself is caught in such an endless chain. Then while Yuki is checking on his stats, a mysterious girl then appears. Could it be Zion, his sword? It turns out that he was actually a she. Now there are already 3 little girls staying in Yuki's castle. Although it would definitely become a bit chaotic from now on, he's still thankful that even though they are of different races, they still get along so well. Luffy, who is very blunt about her thoughts, then asks Yuki where in the world he kidnaps her from. Yuki quickly shuts her up, saying that he didn't kidnap anyone since the little girl is his sword, Zion. Yuki then explains that he knows she is an intelligent weapon. However, he never heard of anything like this before, but the personification skill scroll was available in the DP shop, so that might be one of the factors. However, it seems like Luffy is not taking any of his explanation, as she has well decided that Yuki is something with little girls. In hopes of cheering Yuki up, Layla and Liu even comment that they don't care, no matter how perverted Yuki is. However, their statements somehow even made Yuki stressed. Seeing that everyone is laughing at Yuki, Zion jumps right in to give Yuki a cute hug, trying to cheer him up. Iruna then assures her that all of these are just normal and that she does not need to worry at all. She explains that it is proof that they are getting along all fine. That said, the girls then take Zion out to breathe some fresh air. As they finally reach the outside, Iruna asks Zion what's something she loves. Zion freezes a little bit as she tried to think of it a bit deeper. She then states that she tends to love moving around. However, when she was asked what other hobbies she likes to do, it seemed like that was all. As a result, Iruna tells her that from that day forward, they will try to find other hobbies Zion would definitely like. After all, having so many things to do will make every day fun, and surely, this will make anyone excited to wait for tomorrow to come. Hearing Iruna smile so brightly somehow made Zion have some second thoughts about her perception of the world. All this time, she thought the world was full of cruelty. It's an unending chain of misfortune, as if one is sinking into deep bottomless darkness. However, seeing everyone around her being so happy and cheerful somehow made her think that maybe the world she thought was bad wasn't as bad after all. Meanwhile, in the depths of a dark cave, a dragon named Gyuga is seen entering. The bigger dragon tells him this is not a place he can come to as he pleases. Gyuga then, out of nowhere, starts asking why would the bigger dragon not do anything despite having the power to beat down the world. The big dragon then laughs a little, stating that for a brat who has never set foot outside the village, Gyuga sure talks big. Conquering the world is such a troublesome thing to do, and is something that he hopes to avoid as much as he can. Gyuga has grown arrogant since the young ones have been talking to him. Gyuga then fires back, stating that for a dragon as big as him to have grown senile is just saddening. As a result, the said Dragon King roars so loudly that it will soon shake the world above. On the other hand, back at Yuki's castle, the kids are so excited to witness a very intriguing science experiment. Layla, who has never heard of the word science, then asks Yuki about it. But since Yuki is not knowledgeable enough to explain it in detail, he asks everyone to watch and see it for themselves. For their mini experiment, Yuki lights up a candle and puts it inside a jar. He then asks the kids why the candle is burning and what is causing it. Iduna is lively and raises her hand, stating that it is because of magic. Yuki already knows that Iduna would answer it this way, and that's why he then went on to ask Luffy if she could feel that the fire consumed magic power. Upon checking, Luffy concluded that it doesn't. This made the kids shocked since, all this time, they thought it was all magic. To make things even more exciting, he puts a lid on top of the jar, extinguishing the fire. Seeing this made everyone even more intrigued, so Yuki explains that this is because of oxygen in the air, which is used to fuel a fire. The flame goes out when the lid is put on because the oxygen inside is used up. That said, this proves that even though the world Yuki has reincarnated in is magical, it doesn't really mean it lacks the basic elements of life. It's good to know that although everything in this world has similarities to the world he lived in the past, it still has some big differences that make it unique. Now that everyone is amazed by the new knowledge they have learned, all of them start playing with the kids to have a fun time. They played and played until it was already snack time. Fast forward when things are now quiet, while Yuki is chilling reading a book, Luffy enters the room. The next thing that happened wasn't something that Yuki had ever anticipated. As Luffy steps right in, she immediately asks him to go out on a date with her. This sucks the soul out of Yuki, but he immediately answers it with a yes. Luffy plans to go to the mountains, which makes Yuki excited since it means they are going hiking. However, his excitement is shattered when Luffy tells him that they are going to fly there. There's a beehive on that mountain that she wants to check out. She wants to eat the honey from there as well. Although the sweets that Yuki makes are delicious, that particular honey puts up a good fight for someone like Luffy. At that point, Yuki finally realizes that Luffy doesn't really intend to go on a date with him. She wants a companion to take as she gets her freaking honey. As a result, Yuki has decided to stay and not pursue the date. He explains that he doesn't like honey particularly, so there's no point in coming at all. Luffy then rants, saying that she, as his lovely partner, is craving honey. Isn't it his job to kindly help her out? However, it seems like our demon lord has slowly become cold, as he thinks that the merit he gets from his kindness is only just a side compared to the honey. That's why Luffy thought of something to compensate Yuki instead. She offered to sleep with him for the night if he was willing to, but it seems like Yuki wasn't interested at all. This made Luffy flustered in embarrassment. In the end, she then expresses herself, saying that even though he had thought they could be alone for once in a while, Yuki then continues his statement that he doesn't want to sleep with Luffy but also wants to cuddle with her. That said, they then fly off to that said mountain. That mountain is said to be Luffy's previous home. That's why Yuki is excited to look around. As they finally land, Yuki pants in exhaustion as the oxygen in the said area is quite thin. As they look around, Yuki is quite interested in some of the remains that Luffy's enemies have left. He plans to make small swords for the kids to use in self-defense. Luffy then gives him permission, saying that it's the scale harder than God's steel and the fang sharp enough to impale it after all, so Yuki can use them as he wishes. Aside from that, they can't deny the fact that the scenery on top of the mountain is just breathtaking. The lake in the middle of the forest looks so stunning. Just by looking at it, Yuki can't help himself but get flustered as he realized he is seeing such a scene with the most beautiful girl he has ever met. Then out of nowhere, a group of bees starts to buzz from a distance. As soon as they find a place suitable for their nest, these said bees create a pool of honey beside it, and Luffy is counting on Yuki to get every sweet honey he can. Luffy then asks Yuki to kill the bees while she harvests the sweet honey. At that point, Yuki slowly realizes that the reason why Luffy is insisting on bringing him is for the fact that he will be used as a decoy. While Luffy is enjoying herself, harvesting as much honey as she can, Yuki is seen struggling to kill the never-ending number of bees. When Luffy finally finishes harvesting as much honey as she can, she then asks Yuki if he wants her help. That said, using her Divine Dragon's Roar, which is known to be the strongest trump card of dragons since it is a beam made out of magic power, in the end, Luffy has defeated every one of the bees in an instant. However, as a consequence, her body ended up getting sore from the said honey harvesting trip. As a result, Yuki ended up massaging her body till the next morning. The next day, Zion and the other kids visited the castle. The 3 guards that were guarding the castle then took Zion for a tour around the place. When lunchtime came, Yuki called for everyone. He's so happy to see that Zion is having a great time with everyone. It seems like she is already getting along with the girls. It means Yuki wouldn't really worry about her that much. That said, he and Luffy then decided to play some card games. While they are so into the game, Yuki detects some intruders coming inside the forest dungeon. At that moment, Luffy already knew who it was, so she asks Yuki to stay as she would take care of everything. However, Yuki states that she might need his help at any moment. As a result, the two ended up going out, meeting a new threat that had descended. As Girodia Gyuga lands, he immediately states how relieved he is that he has finally found Luffy, the one and only Supreme Dragon. Gyuga is a black dragon race and is now known to be the plunderer and the king of the dragons. Gyuga is in disbelief as he sees Luffy mimicking humans. Luffy then states that she should be the one asking the question, since why would a brat like Gyuga even become a dragon king? Luffy then asks what happened to Belm, as she doesn't think that the ancient dragons will obediently bow their heads to someone like Gyuga. With much confidence in his voice, Gyuga said proudly that he had killed them all, including Belm and everyone in the dragon's village. This is his only way to become the Dragon King. Now that he is finally it, he plans to proceed in conquering the world since there is no one who can stop him now. That's why he has come to visit Luffy, as he hopes to welcome her to his schemes. According to Gyuga, if he and Luffy combine their power, conquering the world will be a breeze. Although his plan seems reasonable and quite appealing, the fact that he also wants to make Luffy his wife is a big no-no. The moment Yuki hears the dragon's plan, he immediately states that Gyuga should just shut his mouth as he sure is a noisy one. It seems like Yuki isn't allowing anyone to marry anyone. Acting all dramatic and noble, Yuki then states that there is no way Luffy will do something as troublesome as conquering the world, since it will only reduce her time for taking a nap. Since Yuki has already said what Luffy is about to say to Gyuga, she just asks him to go back home and try to seduce a girl who's on the same level as he is. At that moment, noticing that Luffy is quite close to Yuki, Gyuga concluded for himself that Luffy might be mimicking a human all because of Yuki, which she referred to as a bug. Luffy didn't deny it at all, saying that Yuki was indeed her partner. Although Yuki may look like a total idiot, Luffy would rather deal with him rather than an idiot like Gyuga, who annoys her so much. However, it seems like Gyuga wouldn't accept such defeat that fast. Now he is dedicated to fighting Yuki no matter what. Knowing that Gyuga is not a mere dragon, Luffy tries to jump in to help. However, Yuki stops her from doing anything as he plans to take care of everything on his own, and wants to protect Luffy no matter what. Flattered by what Yuki has stated, Luffy decided to leave everything in Yuki's hands from this point forward. Yuki is so confident that he will defeat Gyuga in a flash. However, as he looks at Gyuga's raw stats and starts comparing them to his, it is quite apparent that Gyuga's level is greater than his. As a result, Yuki ended up asking himself if there was even a 1% chance of him winning against the King of Dragons. He has been managing to dodge Gyuga's attacks only because he is looking down on him. Other than that, his title effect also is a big factor in why Yuki somehow manages to last long in this fight. Yuki knows that if he looks away for even a moment, he will surely become mincemeat in the end. His effect title, Judger, is a skill he uses when he is up against an opponent with a crime-related title. This skill enables his status to be multiplied by 15. It is quite noticeable that Yuki's confidence earlier has slowly lowered. He is struggling with this, said the Dragon King. However, with hard work and determination, he somehow manages to cut some parts of Gyuga's hand. But it seems like Gyuga would not allow Yuki to have the last laugh, so he tries to fight back. Every time Gyuga hits Yuki, he always brags to Luffy about it, saying that he is the only one suitable for the one and only Luffy. If this continues longer, Yuki might lose. As Gyuga throws a piece of metal towards Yuki, Yuki tries to avoid it as much as he can. To think that Yuki hadn't died yet makes him quite a persistent opponent. But Yuki is still in a dire situation, so is there any chance of a comeback while being cornered by such a strong opponent? Although it may seem like Yuki needs to try his best to win, well, it turns out that while he is getting all beaten up by Gyuga, he also tries all his might to set up some minefield of traps while he can, since he already knows that the only way he can make up the differences in their abilities is for him to take advantage of the dungeon. That said, it seems like Yuki's plan is starting to show off. But Gyuga seems quite aware of what is happening. As a result, he tries to predict and avoid Yuki's schemes of attacks. But he just ended up falling for the magic induction trap. His attacks are powerful and fast, but his movements are simple and forceful compared to Luffy. He most likely has very little combat experience than Luffy. On the other hand, Luffy tries her best to calm down and not worry about Yuki so much. However, she wishes that Yuki would not let his guard down no matter what. Now that Yuki has finally found an opening, he tries to make sure to make the most of it. As Yuki tries to attack Gyuga from every direction, Gyuga finds a way to counterattack it. Gyuga now emits flames, and if Yuki doesn't take any precautions, he might become charcoal anytime soon. Gyuga knows that he can't possibly win if he depends on his speed. That's why, as much as he can, he tries to utilize his firepower to its maximum. It seems like it is somehow working, as Yuki is definitely in his worst state now. On the other hand, back at Yuki's castle, everyone is so worried for his safety. A while ago, before the fight began, Yuki had asked everyone not to go outside until Luffy and came back. And now that the girls can feel how the ground has been shaking a lot since a while ago, it makes them so worried and sick. However, to compensate for their worries, the girls try to be as positive as they could. Saying that, Yuki is definitely the strongest man out there. Little did they know, Yuki was literally struggling, wounded, and now in pain after his unexpected defeat. However, it seems like Yuki has a lot of willpower that even though he literally lost one of his arms, he still tries his best to fight once more. He tells himself to endure all the pain for the sake of protecting the girls. He can't just stop yet as long as the dragon is still here, alive and breathing. Gyuga, on the other hand, whom all this time has thought that he had already killed Yuki, is now trying to brag to Luffy about how strong he is. However, his cockiness is somehow humbled when he sees Yuki walking toward him. He is shocked to see Yuki, who is bleeding extensively, still breathing and walking. So frustrated at the fact that Yuki is so persistent, Gyuga is never so angry in his life. With that said, Gyuga is now pumped to turn Yuki into ash with his dragon breath. As Gyuga now aims for his target, Yuki has something up his sleeves. It turns out that his previous attack wasn't done for no purpose. Everything in the dungeon is the owner's, which means it's all Yuki's property. This attack is something that Yuki has worked on for a while. Carbon monoxide is then released into the air. This substance is tasteless and odorless. Even though it's something that normally exists in the air, if the density gets over 0.15%, it will cause strong dizziness and nausea in a few minutes. And if the density gets over 1%, it will cause one to lose consciousness and lead to their death. Yuki is using wind magic to create a barrier around himself, and because of that, he can't use any magic at all. Luffy seems to have realized it and protected herself. Yuki is really glad that Gyuga has a muscle for his brain. With that said, Gyuga has now become so paralyzed that Yuki is able to make any attacks he wants on him. That said, at long last, it has all ended. Yuki is so exhausted after winning the dreadful fight that he eventually dozes off. When he finally wakes up, Luffy is so happy that he is able to survive that intense fight. Yuki realizes that he feels unconscious, then opens his eyes slowly. Luffy then states that he is quite right, saying that she is a benevolent woman and has treated Yuki with the best pillow out there, which is none other than her lap. Yuki, who can't agree more, looks so happy. Yuki seems to be more energetic than Luffy thought. Now that he thinks about it, it seems like his wounds are now gone. It turns out that Luffy used her magic power to heal all his wounds. Yuki then questions her about the carbon monoxide that he has gathered. Luffy then informs him that it has already been dispersed to the point that it is already harmless. That said, even though Luffy has restored Yuki's stamina, he still needs to rest for a while to gain back his strength. Luffy then tells him that he has done a great job protecting her. However, it seems like Yuki doesn't think otherwise. Luffy then assures him that he has protected her and defeated the enemy the best way anyone could. That's why he should be proud of himself. Then Yuki guessed it was worth it to push himself in times of need. Although Luffy is so worried about him, she is so thankful that it is all now over. With the cool breeze touching their skin and the sun shining bright above the sky, Yuki has finally let out his true feelings for Luffy. As he gets indulged at the moment, he then abruptly states to Luffy how he truly likes her so much. This made Luffy shaken up a bit as she started to fluster out of shock at what Yuki suddenly started to talk about. However, instead of stopping, Yuki continued to express his feelings. He states that he still might not be equal to her, but he will try his best to be a man that can walk side by side with her. That's why all he asks her is to stay by his side from now on. Luffy, who also had feelings for Yuki, didn't hesitate to fulfill Yuki's wish. For the first time, the two have finally kissed. At this point, Luffy has decided that she will accompany Yuki from now on. While they were embracing each other's warmth, a vow has now been made. After their unexpected kiss, Luffy tries to reason out that it is just proof of oath in the Dragon Tribe, so Yuki should not misunderstand that. However, Yuki is well aware that it wasn't the case at all. Luffy tries to explain that the kiss means that Yuki will now become her other half. Yuki then teases her, saying that from that day onwards, she will now be his wife, which Yuki likes to hear. Luffy then tells Yuki that if he ever tries to increase their female companions, she will get really mad. With that said, they have now made an oath that will last forever. Fast forward after the said intense fight, now that everything has come back to normal, Zion expresses how angry she is that Yuki has not informed her about him entering such a fight. Yuki then tries to cheer her up, saying his apologies. Zion can't seem to contain herself how she has been so worried about Yuki. However, as she remembers the time witnessing Yuki and Luffy making out in front of her, it somehow makes her even more furious. So to cheer Zion up, Yuki offers to stay with her the whole day and do whatever she wants. He tries to make her stop sulking. Seeing Yuki like this makes Zion so happy. That said, she states that she wants Yuki to stay with her like this. However, the other girls are now jealous of how Yuki treats Zion, not the same way as them. Iruna then states that she also had been really worried about him, so he must hug her too. So in the end, Yuki ended up hugging a bunch of kids. At the corner of the room, Luffy is seen so unentertained by what she is seeing her husband doing. After that family time, Yuki checks on his stats. There he sees that he had finally become really powerful. He has gained another skill called Indomitable and King's Intimidation. Indomitable is a skill that greatly reduces damage received from enemies and increases all stats by 1.5 times when HP reaches below 20%. While on the other hand, King's Intimidation is a skill that releases intimidation to all enemies within a certain range around the user, slowing their movements. The effect of the target varies depending on the difference in status between the user and the enemy. Yuki has also gained another title called the Demon Dragon Lord, which is a title that is given to demon lords who have defeated the King of the Dragon, the current Dragon King. Highly respected by the members of the Dragon Tribe, which means that he is now the King of the Dragon Tribe, but he has no plans to rule over them though. On the other hand, the dungeon has also leveled up. The DP that he used to make traps also increased considerably after converting the corpse of the dragon. Even though his analysis skill has reached max, he still can't see Luffy's status. This leaves Yuki to conclude that his wife might be so strong that even numbers can't explain it. That said, although it kinda hurts that he lost the DP he was getting from Luffy's stay because she got judged as a family member by the dungeon, but at the same time, it makes Yuki so happy. Another blissful day has come by Yuki's home. Liu is seen ridiculing Yuki, which makes him very irritated. Seeing how Yuki moves so much, Luffy tries to remind him that he should not force himself too much, since he is still not fully recovered. Yuki then jumps into the bed with her, resting while cuddling. After Yuki had finally finished resting, he then went on to train with Zion once more. He has fused Luffy's Fang with Zion while also enchanting some magic. Now all he has to do is to incorporate a new magic circuit into it. Zion has also acquired a title for herself called the Dragon Killer. This means that she is now a weapon that cuts the flesh and blood of members of the Dragon Tribe and takes their lives. No one can block the blade of this weapon. All stats are increased by 1.5 times when fighting dragons. Other than that, Zion has also reached the legendary tier. This means her attack is 900 or above, her endurance is 1100 or above, and her magic depends on the sword. Yuki is also planning to add some self-recovery and magic effects to increase Zion's magic circuits to the ring that Luffy gave. As they continue with their training and whatnot, the Demon Lord Yuki has now become even stronger. From trampling down the manticores, hunting with Rear, and creating jet propulsion using Zion's wind magic. This just shows that Yuki has tried various things. For many years, Luffy didn't know that the world was a big and pleasant place. If she hadn't met Yuki, if she hadn't known of his way of living freely, Luffy thinks that she'd probably still be living alone on top of that mountain. That's why she is so thankful that Yuki has shown her how truly beautiful the world is. On the other hand, another has passed, and Yuki is seen having another hunting session with Rear. But this time, he looks so high-spirited. The question is, what is he trying to do? Yuki is seen calling his pets the four Devas. Orochi, which is a giant serpent with a skill called Poison Fangs. There is also Yatta, which is a Noir crow race and has the skill of clairvoyance. There is also Byaku, a monster cat race with the skill of Genjutsu. And lastly, Seimi, which is a water fairy and has a special skill of water manipulation. As every one of them is summoned, Yuki introduces himself to them all. He then states that he wants them four to hunt all the monsters and invaders in the dungeon. However, the monsters in the area are quite strong, and there are traps as well, so they must listen to their senior Rear on how to proceed. Yuki will now count on Rear to take care of everything. Luffy and Iduna then enter the scene. It seems like the two have come to see Yuki's new pets. Luffy then states that she just came because she is worried that Yuki might create a new little girl. Yuki then tries to assure her that all the little girls in the dungeon aren't there because of his choice. As they continue to bicker silently, Iduna is seen looking so happy and lively as she gets so excited about meeting all of Yuki's cute pets. One by one, she hugs them with so much love. Iduna easily got along with everyone, maybe because of the fact that she's quite the person that is easy to get along with. Iduna sure is gutsy as always. She probably got that from Yuki, Luffy states. To irritate Yuki, Luffy then states that she hopes Iduna doesn't get Yuki's bad side. As the two continue to argue once more, Luffy tries to lecture Yuki that he needs to learn more from her and act more composed. Yuki then fires back, saying he doesn't want to sleep all day doing nothing like Luffy. As their conversation continues, they seem so occupied that it ends up in them not noticing that Iduna is now flying with Yuki's pet crow 100 feet above the ground. The two were so shocked at what they saw. Luffy then immediately asks Yuki to hurry up and catch up on Iduna as she watches them below in case she falls. As Yuki flies off, Luffy can't help herself but get so worried for Iduna. In case Iduna falls, she will make sure to roast that bird in no time. Thankfully, it seems like Yuki has successfully rescued Iduna from a death fall. A few days later, Yuki and Rear are seen again playing outside. However, this time everyone is playing with them. Luffy and Liu are really enjoying themselves, trying to be so competitive. This is probably the first time we saw Luffy play on her own will. With that said, the lineup is unfair as Luffy would call it, since she and Liu are the only ones in their group while Yuki is with his 5 pets. That said, it is quite obvious that Yuki's team is really at an advantage. Yuki then tries to irritate her by asking where all her confidence went. With so much pride, Leffy wouldn't allow to get defeated by a mere person like Yuki. As a result, she is all pumped up and is ready to compete with Yuki no matter what. With her eagerness to win, Leffy has managed to kick the ball with all her might. It literally almost killed Yuki's serpent pet. While they are enjoying themselves, a shadow is seen lurking in the woods, observing them from afar. However, Yuki has already noticed the said intruder. He then lets out his sword and is ready to fight the intruder in no time. Normally, most of the intruders are dealt with by monsters in the dungeon, but sometimes there are people who can easily pass them like this one. And this intruder named Haloria Leylot, a guardian devil, is definitely one of them. She is a royal guard covert soldier. But the question is, why is she here anyway? As Yuki and Leylot go on a meeting, Leylot then reveals that she wants to ask Yuki if he is willing to join hands with the royalties and form a beneficial alliance against their common enemy. Now it's just a matter of time before we know Yuki's answer to that. While Yuki and Leylot are having their conversation, Layla enters the room, bringing them some drinks for refreshment. Leylot turns out to know that Layla is the one who is called the Kinjin who thirsts for knowledge, and that she is part of the Horned Sheep tribe. Hearing this made Yuki curious. Layla then explains that it was her nickname when she was still young. Now that Yuki has thought about it, he suddenly remembered that Layla actually went missing after she tried to search for materials that only exist in the human world. Leylot, who seemed so fascinated about Layla, has eventually given up asking questions when Layla seems to not be so comfortable about it. That said, Leylot just went on to explain the true business of why she visited the forest. She explains that the area ruled by the demons is split into two. These are the demons involved in the recent disturbances in the royal capital. On the other hand, there is a world that is currently trying to scout Yuki. This means that the demon world's two factions are about to have a war, and Yuki immediately states that he doesn't want to get involved in any of those. Leylot then states that the enemy force is aware of the dungeon and Yuki's existence. Considering what happened to Alicia, Leylot thinks that it would be better for Yuki to team up with the kingdom. Yuki then asks Layla for some advice. As Layla thinks about it, she remembers that when she was still in the demon world, the situation was pretty much already like that. The conflict between the two factions seems to intensify. The Devil tribe is extremist, and their force could pose a threat to the forest. Certainly, it would be troublesome if they were to come to the dungeon for retribution. Above all, they were using Leffy as their killing machine. That said, this somehow changes Yuki's decision. As for the kingdom, all they want to form is a good relationship with Yuki as they share the same enemy. And if possible, Leylot wants Yuki to lend them his strength in case of an emergency. Knowing Yuki, he wouldn't do anything for free, so when he asks what the merit is for him, Leylot then states that they are constantly watching the faction's movement so they can relay that information to him. But other than that, there's nothing more they can offer. That's why Leylot is here to ask Yuki to talk directly to their lord for negotiation. This confused Yuki as hell since she pretty much meant that instead of their lord coming to him to ask for help, he actually needed to see their lord to extend his help. Leylot then went on to explain that currently, they can't afford their lord to leave the country. Since this means another trip with the girls, Yuki is somehow excited since he can go sightseeing with the demon lord while having a lovey-dovey honeymoon. That said, Yuki still needs to consult with Leffy about it, so he let Leylot stay for the day to wait for the response. Yuki then went on to ask Leffy about it, but it seems like Leffy isn't going at all. Although it may come as a surprise, Leffy decided to just stay instead of spending a great time vacationing with Yuki. Yuki tries to persuade her to come. However, it seemed like her mind was already made up. As a result, Yuki ended up going to the demon realm without Leffy. He will stay there for about 3 weeks or so, but it still depends if something comes up. He is not that worried about the dungeon considering Leffy would stay. However, he is still worried that something bad might happen while he is away. But instead of drowning himself in negative thoughts, Yuki just thought positively for the time being. The next day, Yuki will now make his way to the demon realm, and it seems like Layla is coming with him too. Leffy decided to make Layla come with Yuki so she could serve as his guard. Although Leffy isn't really that worried about Yuki's strength, she is just worried that Yuki might get easily swayed by girls in the realm. Before her thoughts can even eat up her day, she then tells Leo to do her chores as the others will help her. With that said, Yuki is now on his way to fight, while Leffy stays at home, taking care of everything like a housewife. Yuki and Layla ride rear to the demon city while Leylot rides Orochi the serpent, and it doesn't look like she enjoyed it at all. When they finally reach the city, Yuki is so amazed by how vast it is. However, Yuki can't stop looking at other girls of different species, not because he wants to hit on them, but because he is just amazed. Layla and Zion warn him not to make a mistake since they will surely report everything to Leffy. That said, since they got to the city a bit late already, Leylot tells everyone that they will go to the next city by horse after they spend the night in the inn. That's why everyone should rest well since they still have a long journey, and so they did. The next day, Yuki and the others are amazed that the supposed horse carriage turns out to be an elephant carriage. Layla then explains that it used to be horses, but after a few races that used elephants started following in, it ended up sticking. Hearing this somehow made Zion so mesmerized. She likes hearing all the stories that Layla always tells. That's why she is looking forward to the next one. When Layla finally arrives at the meeting place, the group hops into the carriage individually. They were shocked, but mostly Yuki, when they saw the Catwoman they saw yesterday. The Catwoman's name seems to be Naya, and she is an axe wielder. On the other hand, there's Mir, the witch who knows everything about magic. Last but not least, the girl with the giant watermelon. Ruinu is a technical devil with a sword dancing skill. Yuki tries his best not to make any wrong moves, as he is being monitored by two girls every second. While they are in their conversation, Yuki informs the girls that a group of bandits is coming their way, since they are the guards for the carriage. Seeing the men rushing towards them, the girls immediately position themselves to fight. However, it seems like Yuki is just so calm throughout the whole situation, which somehow makes the girls confused. Yuki then tries to tell them to calm down, as he already got everything under control. Using his Earth Dragon spell, he is able to defeat all the bandits in one go. He seems so proud of his new magic, and Layla commends him for that. On the other hand, the other girls are so amazed by Yuki's ability to cast spells without chanting them, and the fact that these are powerful spells makes everything even more unbelievable. Yuki then asks the girls if bandits come out often. Layla then explains that this is just a recent problem. So as Yuki thought, at this rate, taking Iduna and the others on vacation to the Demon City wouldn't be safe at all. That's why for him to be able to do so, he must first ensure to make the whole realm safer for everyone to enjoy. They then finally arrived at the demon capital, Regheg. The girls then bid them farewell as they will now part ways. Yuki cannot deny that this wasn't a boring trip thanks to the girls, which Zion also thought to be interesting. While roaming around the capital, Yuki asks Layla if she has been there before. Layla then answered that she had only come a few times because of research. This made Yuki curious as to what field does Layla even study. Layla, who is a lover of knowledge, states that there are quite a few that she is quite interested in. Layla even states that Layla has written a lot of impressive thesis papers in a wide range of fields, and almost everyone knows about this. This made Yuki so amazed. Layla then reasons that she just researched where her curiosity ended up. That's why Yuki somehow got interested in knowing that if one day he is not any more interesting, will Layla leave? His question somehow made Layla smile. Layla assures him that her interest in the Demon Lord will never cease. Hearing this is such a relief for Yuki since they have already built a stronger bond than ever. When they arrived at the Demon King's castle, the only word to describe the place was enormous. Laylot then guides them through the way, and when they finally reach the Demon King's room, a man commends Laylot for finishing her mission successfully. It turns out this man is the Demon King, Final. He is so delighted to finally meet Yuki in person. Since Yuki has already heard most of the situation from Laylot, the king wouldn't elaborate on it further. Since he knows Yuki is tired, he wastes no more time and gets straight to business. He states that he is pretty adept at planning and moving in secrecy, but to be honest, he is pretty weak and inferior to Yuki in terms of combat prowess. That's why he wants Yuki to be their symbol of power, and this sounds so good for Yuki. However, the Final's plan is far more extreme than most think. He is actually willing to make himself a target to the enemy, more of a bait. Hearing this made Yuki stressed that he almost wanted to go home. However, since he is already here, he just needs to ask a few more questions. Yuki first asks him why he is so sure of his strength, and if he is strong, as Final says, what's in it for the Demon King if he joined them? To answer Yuki's first question, the Demon King's subordinates used the analysis skill on Yuki and said they couldn't see their status, which made him conclude that there is quite a level difference. Also, the demons who tried to get the new Dragon King to join them said that he had disappeared when he was in the area of Yuki's dungeon, which again made the Demon King conclude that Yuki might have defeated them. However, it doesn't matter if Yuki defeated the dragon. Someone who lived and coexisted in the same area as the Dragon King wouldn't be weak. Now about Yuki's second question. The Demon King thinks that Yuki should already understand by now. First off, the information network he has is for Yuki to use. From what the Demon King gathered, it hasn't been long since Yuki became the Demon Lord, so his connections and information should come in handy. Also, he is planning to give Yuki some resources for his dungeon. As long as it is something he can do, the Demon King is willing to grant it for Yuki. Yuki then immediately asks if he can get money, treasure, and stuff like that. The Demon King immediately says yes. He even added that if Yuki is in the demon realm, whether it be an autonomous region or holy grounds, he will make it so Yuki can go on vacation anywhere. He can even add a tour guide for Yuki to even enjoy the experience. Other than that, he can also bring everyone back home. This made Yuki excited, and as a result, it seems like Yuki might actually get the deal. But as he thinks about it, no matter what, he is still treated as an enemy by the other demons. there aren't really any upsides to being independent in this situation, and to think that the reward is also good made Yuki think that he might be doing the right thing. Nevertheless, how much can he actually trust this guy? That's why he decided to ask one last question. Aren't the secret forces of demons in the demon capital of Alshil under his command? With a bit of an eerie tone, the Demon King states that there's no way he is in command. If it were up to him, Yuki wouldn't know anything about this at all. So Yuki just tells himself that if Final does anything suspicious, he'll just get rid of him in one go. That said, Yuki has now decided that he will cooperate with the Demon King, so he asks for Final to give the details to Layla so they can start with the plan. That said, Final then asks Yuki to follow him. On the other hand, a man and a woman are seen waiting for someone. The man asks how long would Final make them wait, but it seems like they can't do anything about it as there aren't many people who would be able to join them, even among demons. So they ask what on earth will show up now. As Yuki and Final finally reach the enormous conference room, Final decides to settle down and greet everybody. As everyone is now in their respective places, the Demon King then decides to introduce Yuki to everyone that is part of their alliance. First, he introduced the Mountain Dwarf King, Doda, who looks like a Viking. Then there is a Forest Elf Queen, Naflaz Fillet, who looks so angelic and beautiful. And lastly, the Beast Clan leader, Valdroy Glard, who's rather very intimidating at first look. The Demon King introduced Yuki to them, stating that he is the Dungeon Demon Lord, Yuki. He hopes that everyone gets along as they will now become allies. However, it seems like it wouldn't be the case at all. After hearing that Yuki is a Dungeon Lord, Valdroy immediately reacts, stating that putting a Demon Lord full of greed and arrogance in their ranks is outrageous. Even Doda agrees with Valdroy's take. Final assures them that Yuki is trustworthy, since in any situation there are always exceptions. However, it seems they don't even believe the Demon King's judgment, as they think the Demon King really doesn't know about it, since they themselves couldn't even see Yuki's stats since they didn't have the analysis skill. On the other hand, Naflaz states that if Final trusts Yuki that much, she will also trust him. It seems like Naflaz has an analysis skill like Yuki, and she can pretty much see that Yuki is indeed someone trustworthy. With a level 9 analysis skill, Naflaz can probably see a lot of Yuki's status, which even amazes Yuki that much. Naflaz then asks if it is unusual for a demon lord to leave his dungeon and come to the demon world. However, it seems like Yuki didn't have any choice since he was pretty much forced to come here. However, he assures that his dungeon is in good hands as Luffy, his wife, is left at home. So he thinks it's the safest place in the world and that there shouldn't be any problems. As Naflaz hears the word wife, she is amazed and simultaneously shocked that Yuki is actually the guy everyone is talking about. It turns out he is quite known by many as the partner of the legendary dragon, Luffy. Even though Luffy is not with Yuki throughout this trip, it seems like her presence and name being so influential is still able to help Yuki through his time in the Demon City. That said, just by hearing that he is the legendary dragon's partner, he immediately got everyone's trust. This just shows how much influence Luffy actually has everywhere. That said, now that everyone is getting along already, Final has decided to start the meeting. After the meeting, Yuki informed Layla about everything. Layla then informs him that according to what was discussed, they will enter a military alliance with the Demon World King's Brass and form a friendship with the Demon Lord, including helping as an ally when the time arises. The alliance will be announced at the 4 Species Alliance meeting in the future. But isn't a military alliance a symbol of power that's too risky, Layla worries? Yuki then explains that no matter which path they follow, they're still going to fight the demons eventually, and in that situation, it's better to have an ally anyway. But Yuki is more worried about the possibility of something bad happening to the girls and the others. That's why Yuki plans on being more careful this time. Yuki then hands Layla a piece of what looks like jewelry. Layla is a bit confused at first, so Yuki explains that it is a piece of equipment she can use to go back to the dungeon. So technically, this is a teleportation magic tool. It is only usable once. It activates once you pour your magic into it. Yuki then asks Zion to put it on, and in case she needs to use it, she just needs to pour in her original power from her katana form into the magic tool, and then she can return. Although Zion wants to be with Yuki, Yuki is just trying to plan ahead of time in case things get bad. The next day, the contract with the Demon Lord became official. The said contract states that the Demon World King will support and patronize Demon Lord Yuki as much as possible. Also, the Demon World King will use Demon Lord Yuki as a mercenary. Other than that, the Demon World King will also need to pay Demon Lord Yuki an appropriate reimbursement for services regardless of whether the current situation is solved. After that, Layla negotiated a lot of rewards, which Yuki referred to as a battle of words and smiles. On yet another busy yet amazing day in the Demon Capital, Yuki has decided to treat the girls to eat some delicious food. Layla tries to open up a conversation since they were eating so peacefully and quietly in such a busy place while others were having a chit-chat. She states that Yuki should rely on those around him more since he has always maintained a reserved personality, trying to do everything independently. Yuki then states that he probably should have let Layla do the negotiation from the beginning. That's why he has decided to leave it to her next time. Layla, who is quite excited herself, is looking forward to the next time. However, Yuki just said this to avoid arguing with Layla since he can't afford to do so this time. As he sips his drink, Yuki moves his eyes to the side. There he saw two women walking past them wearing robes. One of the girls looked so familiar that Yuki couldn't help himself but take a look at her. When the girl finally reaches their table, Yuki can't help but ask if the girl is the person he thinks she is. As he calls Nell's name, the girl stops for a minute and turns. Right at that moment, it is confirmed that it was indeed Nell all along. Coming across each other in such a foreign city is such a shock to both of them, especially Nell, who can't believe she is able to see her Oni-san once more. That's all we have for today. Don't forget to subscribe so you'll be notified if we upload part 5 of the series. Until next time, bye!